And welcome to a brand new life, to a brand new day, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name is Michael, and I am the creator of all that you hear. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds from the underground. First time listeners, turn on, tune in, and drop out. This is a very different kind of show, a place where you don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. I do admire you for your curiosity. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. Slicing through the night indeed, O.J. Simpson style, live and direct, streaming to you live on YouTube right now. You can, of course, find the podcast rendition of this program simply by going to michaeldecon.com. Go there now. Tonight we have a full house yet again. Two brave souls join us this evening. And of course, I was just on last night. For those who missed it, go back and check that out. First up is E.A. Koetting. Mr. Koetting has invested over a dozen years studying the mysteries of the occult and their practical applications. And he has spent the last decade teaching and guiding others in their ascent. He's appeared here before, and we welcome him back into the circle. And of course, after the break, we will take yet another journey outside of our bodies to the astral plane with Mr. Prince Paul Mamakos. Paul has been an astral traveler for over 20 years. He, of course, is the author of the book, The Golden One. You can check out his website over at outofbodyjournal.com. Hello to you in the chat room. And of course, hello to all of those who will listen to this on the replay. I missed ya. I'll tell you one person who I won't be missing. That's that Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They should have assigned Hope Hicks for that gig. The whole ball game would have changed. Oh yeah, it's a game changer, all right. And of course, I do want to talk to you out there. Don't be afraid to call in. That number is 760-332-8724. One more time, 760-332-8724. Don't be shy. Doesn't hurt to pick up your little phone there and give us a ring. Now, let's get down to brass tacks here. I'm wasting too much time. Eric must be bored waiting. Let's bring him in. Eric, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh, yes. I apologize for the long intro there. I was having fun talking nonsense there.
Yeah, no, you're good. You said when you right before you went to it that you mentioned that you basically play it up, you overplay it, and I'm a fan of doing that. That's
oh yeah,
that's actually something. I mean, I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna come on and just start swinging right away.
Go ahead. I like that.
I see. Not only do I see the criticism out there about me, I love it. I stir it up and I create it. It's fun. I'm having a lot of fun with the presentation, and that's a big part of it. If you know about Magick, there's always the observed, the obvious,
the showmanship. Yeah,
and then you have what's going on underneath that while everybody's looking in the other direction. That's what we're doing with ritual. That's what we're doing with a lot of, I mean, even the magic of media, that we can change the way that we and others perceive reality on a very fundamental scale.
I agree. And of course, I do want to officially welcome you back into the program here, Eric, just to be formal.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's awesome to be back on. I was excited to hear from you again, and we had a great show last time, and I've kind of been keeping up to date. It's funny. I'm a big fan of the occult. I don't know if people picked up on that at all, but
we had a guess. We took a guess.
in researching it and in seeking out some of the strongest and most clear voices in the field, I keep coming across your show.
Amazing.
I mean, you do have a lot of really great guests that and you're able to pull some really fun information out.
Oh yes, I'm so glad you have picked up on that and noticed it. It's been great. It's been a great experience talking to these individuals, and I've been very fortunate to get a chance to talk to many of these individuals I grew up admiring in a sense. Mike Hideous being one of them. He's a great guy and someone who I invite here quite often to do a co-hosting. And one of the people that I've been bringing on quite often here whenever Mike is around is, of course, Dr. Michael Aquino.
Mhm.
And I told you, Eric, tonight, originally, this was supposed to be me, you, and Michael.
That's first off, that sentence in itself is ridiculously humbling to me. That this man, he's a giant. In the conversations you've had with him, as well as what I find really actually interesting is that he has been revealing so much recently that he's always kept himself in public view when he needed to, and he's got the funny ability to kind of shrink away when he wants to.
Right.
And but he is definitely a master of the magical arts without a doubt, and he paved the road that I now walk on. So even the opportunity to speak on the same show that he has been on is an honor. To possibly sit and have a conversation with the man himself, I would be thrilled. I do hope things are well with him. I don't know.
That's why, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to bother him just yet, because I was told he's not doing entirely so well at this moment in time. So I held back, but don't worry, I'm going to get you back in here soon.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the clarity of mind that he has is amazing. I've got a really creative, artistic mind. I'm firing off thoughts. Most of the time, I don't really know where the information I'm getting is even coming from. It's just being channeled through. Aquino is quite the opposite. His mind is very, very sharp and very calculated, to the point, I envy that about him, and I would like to say that I would like to have that quality, but that's not how my mind works. I think he's one of a kind.
Yeah, he's in a league entirely of his own, to be completely honest. And I've said it before in the program that he's definitely the smartest guest I've ever spoken to. Probably the smartest person I've ever had a conversation with, to be completely frank here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And I'll tell you what, I have had to walk away from a few radio shows because they tried to get me to go along with slandering him as far as validating. There are all these satanic panic rumors, and he freely addresses them quite clearly. And has written a whole book addressing it, and has really proven his case to every government agency out there. And but the slander still goes on, and so I have had to walk away, and I have walked away from radio interviews where they tried to wrangle me into smearing him, because he is, from all evidence that I've seen, he is an upstanding man.
That's unusual that they would go after you, or try to ambush you rather, like that. But that's sort of like a classic radio bit to do.
Oh yeah. Well, it is. It's.
You should have played along.
Well, it's the radio shows that feed off of fear, unfortunately.
Well, you could have turned it on them quite easily, though.
Yeah.
You just got to know how to troll these guys back.
That's true. I'll tell you what. So, and you just identified, I think, why Aquino has such a remarkably profound, calculated mind, especially from my perception. Is I am quite emotional, and so I have a hard time detaching emotionally enough when I'm confronted with that sort of situation, especially where it's somebody that I respect, to be as clear-headed as I wish I could be. I'm much more clear-headed when I'm discussing topics that I really, really love and I'm really engaged in it. I hate going on defensive because I'm not good at it.
I never saw you like that, Eric. I always thought you were more of this laid-back character. I didn't exactly know you had this sort of aggression, but then I'll take that back for a moment here. Then I went on your YouTube page, not YouTube, your Facebook page, and then I see you with a photo of a sword, and I thought, oh, that's pretty black metal of Eric here. Maybe there is some aggression. I like that though.
No, well, hey, I'll tell you what, aggression is. It's necessary I think, for people to remember that we're predators. We are apex predators. We are absolutely the most dangerous thing on this planet.
No doubt. Yeah.
And I think if we admit that, then we can respect that. And a lot of the chest beating that goes on with modern warfare is ridiculous. We could be putting our efforts towards amazing things through that spirit of competition if we're able to harness it as a collaboration. I do see like there's a shift in, I would flat out call it a shift in the aeons that's occurring, where we're going from systems of power that have been dominating and coercing, and we're shifting into an aeon of collaboration, cooperation, and consent, and that is just clearly the way that society is going, that business is going, where the employee-employer relationship is now changing to a bunch of small business owners that are all controlling their own destinies. These are amazing things, and it is really a sign. I think a lot of people can and do find things to point at, that to say that this is the worst time, this is the worst age ever, and that things are so awful, so much more horrible now than they've ever been. I think the opposite's absolutely true. That we're only more aware of how horrible some things are, and we are now armed with the knowledge and the power to change that.
I agree with you 100%. Is the world really that bad? I mean, we're not. We're in America, for God's sakes. It's not exactly that horrible here. Some people think they're in a third world country, though.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what? I'll tell you what. It's
ridiculous.
Well, and I have been homeless in the United States.
Yeah, we'll talk about that right now. Let's get into that, because Eric, there are newer souls out there that have never really heard of you before that will be jumping in here, especially on the podcast version of this program. So let's go back in time, way back in time. I know your life early on wasn't all sunshines and rainbows. Let's take that psychedelic flashback through time here, Eric. Tell us about your past.
Yeah, my mother, my birth mother, I say birth mother because I was adopted away from her care. My birth mother was young, and interestingly, with her generation, there was a whole lot of unintended pregnancies that usually ended up in grandparents raising the children. Like that, there was like almost like a flood of that for a period. And her parents, my grandparents, wanted to raise me, and that they tried to for about 6 months, and that was just too intensive a situation. It was, it's hard for her to go party and do her thing with her child at home in any way. So she gave me up for adoption, but pretty unofficially, it seems. I ended up in the hands of some child predators, to put it mildly, and they eventually got arrested and for child pornography, from what I understand, and all the charges that would be associated with that, as well as I believe a murder. And I was 2-3 years old at that point, and that I had been not only not only subjected to abuse, but so severely neglected that I could barely move. And I specifically, when I was 4 years old, I still wasn't able to cross midline, meaning that I couldn't take my right hand and grab an object on the left side of my body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that develops when you have three-dimensional objects. You know, you have a toy that a child plays with, or the little thing that spins, the mobile that spins above them, and I didn't have any of that, so I had never developed that.
I see.
And what was that?
Oh, it's just saying I understand.
Yeah. So at 4 or 5 years old, right about, I get adopted into this family. They're good family, good Mormon, big Mormon family. For sure.
Mormon family.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
Like really, really hardcore too. My father did not. I say my adopted father. He didn't. He's not a lukewarm kind of guy, and so he was a very, very, very Mormon.
So you had to wear the special underwear.
Well, you don't get the underwear until you're 19.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you get your underwear when you go on your mission, which I almost did. I was a couple weeks away from going on a mission for the Mormon Church, and
wow.
I had a sit down talk with my bishop, and this was that was my second dip in, because I was raised in the LDS Church, and then I left and came back as an adult, thinking that it was, kind of grasping for the last moment of sanity that I could find, and thought that maybe if I started going back to church, that the world would get better. And
how old were you then, by the way, Eric, when you were contemplating church and that sort of thing?
That was I was 20, 21.
Okay.
No, that's not right. I was 19. Specifically 19, that's right. My 20th birthday, I was told when I was 19, I started working with Lucifer pretty intensely, and really, really intensely. And I had just barely started learning how to tune into these spirits and how to see them. I was using a scrying mirror mostly at that time, and I was really developing my skills at about 18, 19, and I made contact with Lucifer after doing multiple rituals, and my apartment, I had taken Sharpie marker and had covered the walls in incantations and sigils of Lucifer. Not only did I look like a madman, I was absolutely delving into the madness of calling upon the Prince of Darkness, and he came, and what I mean by that is he activated. There was an activation of a almost like a bridge between the worlds, that inside my own consciousness, I could observe both the spiritual reality overlaid upon the physical reality, and he opened that rift, and my work really has been just opening it more and more and more since, for myself and hopefully on a global level.
Understood. And Eric, I want you to take us through that moment you actually left that house, the Mormon family. What was that? Did you leave on a good note? Is basically what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, well, the parents, my parents split. They divorced when I was about 8, and so I toggled between them. Both of them. I've realized this as I have now a 14-year-old child, that my adopted parents didn't give me very good skills of how to discipline and parent, because they basically would just kick us out of the house. If we were living with Dad and started getting into trouble or having conflict, Dad would kick us out. We'd go live with Mom for a while, and that was kind of life for a bit. And their houses were extremely polar opposite. My mother had become atheist since their split, blaming the religion for my father's affair, and my father just kind of dove headfirst into the church even more. And so yeah, it was. Did I leave on good terms? No,
not really. Okay.
I graduated from high school living with my mother, and that was a good enough relationship. I said, have definitely always had a harder time, I think, connecting with people, and
Even at
definitely at
school,
that early an age as well.
even early in in high school, you had a difficult time connecting with your peers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, high school I mean throughout my life, absolutely. I still, I you know I go to these I go to music festivals. I love music festivals, and I love the all of the shenanigans that go along with throwing yourself into a music festival. And
Sure, yeah.
yeah, and so I remember just collapsing. I'm dressed in some kind of sort of clown suit with a kilt on, and I'm collapsed against the wall, saying nobody here loves me,
Oh
and
no.
I'm surrounded by people that are dancing and singing, and so I definitely have that feeling
Did you
of
happen to
being.
eat mushrooms?
Oh, I have, and that produces a very interesting.
I was gonna
Actually,
say that.
mushrooms doesn't make me very emotional.
Ah, okay.
What mushrooms does is for me is it actually it cranks up the internal monologue, so I can hear myself quite a bit more clearly, and I do find that I kind of isolate on mushrooms specifically, that I'll take them, and rather than jumping into conversation or dance, I'll kind of go sit and think, and so it's
It's
good
good
for
for
that.
that. Yeah, good for creativity.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it is. I I had a client that was out here. I do a boot camp service I'm tailoring in different ways, but it allows people to come out and work with me personally in ritual. I'll teach them all kinds of different things. And so I had a fellow out here that was taking copious amounts of various drugs while we were doing our sessions, and
Good
I
times.
asked him. I asked him about that. I'm like, and not just marijuana either. And I asked him how that, for myself. If I'm going to do a ritual, for the most part I want to be sober. I want to have a focused mind, and be really clear about where I'm at.
Yeah, you want to
And
remember it.
yeah, and remember, but more than anything, I'll tell you what, really though, to control it, I want to be able to. I did experiment with LSD and evocations, and it didn't. It doesn't produce a good result. The thing that you see when you take the LSD is not the same thing that comes out in an evocation. These are entirely different worlds you're tapping into.
Yes, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll go down that path here. We're jumping a little bit ahead here. I definitely want to go back really quickly to when you left your, I guess, adopted parents' house, and you're deep into the occult. And what was their initial reaction to all this change in their baby boy? Sarcasm.
Yeah, and it was scary for them for sure.
Yeah.
So they, part of the story of the family that I ended up with. I guess you could say foster family, but whatever. Is that the father of the home was he formed his own church or cult, and he created his own religion, and believed that he was his own god, and it scared my parents for sure when they started seeing that I was pursuing a similar interest. Even I can't even imagine how how terrifying that must have been for them, for sure. It's interesting because I look at that, and I don't see accidents very often.
I see.
I think that a lot of things do line up and kind of point you the way. So they were scared when I started practicing, for sure. When it started being obvious about it, I think I was living with my mother. I was 14, because when I was with my father, since he was so religious, I hid it quite a bit. I didn't practice at all because it was too. I mean, aside from playing the Ouija board, that was kind of my entry into it, was talking to these spirits on Ouija boards, and then that wasn't enough for me, because I started, as I was playing with the Ouija board, I would start to feel a spirit in the room, and I could locate it. Usually, it would hang out in the corners of the rooms, and I started becoming aware of the presence of these, and one specific spirit that was a constant. a constant companion in the for about 6 months of my life when I was about 12 or 13 years old. Everywhere I went, and at every moment, I was aware of this particular entity that was there. And then, the only name I got for him was Saw, S-A, on the Ouija board. It never really communicated with me. I mean, I think it did communicate with me telepathically, but not with any kind of conversation, but more emotion and almost like a primal passing
I see.
of things. So. So I had this. The door was opened. I had this intense interest. I didn't know where it came from. I consciously didn't know that at that point that that family that I was in had a similar thing.
Your
That wasn't
biological family.
right.
Correct. Okay.
My biological family also had when I met with my mother, my birth mother, which I did connect with her as an adult. I told her what I do for a living and sent her to my website, and I was expecting a harsh reaction, I guess, because it's pretty intense. And she kind of shrugged and says, "Well, that figures you'd be doing that. That's exactly what our whole family pretty much is into." And I thought, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Well, yeah, your grandma was a witch, and for you, there has been witchcraft in the family for generations, and they all kind of know it, and they can. Most of them choose not to practice, but it's always available, I think, for them.
It's interesting.
And very, very
So
interesting.
it's in your blood.
It, absolutely in my blood, and there was also the fact that my family bloodline has a lot of authors in it as well, and so it's actually kind of mind blowing what can travel through the blood.
That's wild.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything aligned.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying everything aligned for you then.
You know, everything seems to do that. It would be really, really easy to dismiss all of this as coincidence and we're just an accident if it just wasn't so damn perfect. It just lines up perfect every time.
I'm glad you're saying this now because I don't think I've ever got much of a chance to really go down this route with you here, but I wanted to ask you about God. Do you believe in God?
So first, I'll have to say I don't really have beliefs. I mean, I have beliefs, but I don't consider beliefs to be have very much weight. What I actually invest in is experiences, and I have experienced the reality of a source of all things, and calling it God marginalizes it. It's not a being with a face and a body,
right?
But it is the central source of all, and I have intimately experienced that, and I also think that part of my mission, and I would say all of humanity's definitely, but most humanity won't agree with me. Part of our mission here is to actually push away from source, to create our own reality, to create our own dimension in which we can step into that is 100% our own, that is separate from God entirely.
Yes, I'm personally an agnostic atheist, yet I've experienced a few things that many would consider paranormal. Depending on my mood, I will at times believe there is something else out there in another plane, the outer plane, and I'm not overly religious at all, obviously, but I'm still quite interested in a number of topics and stories in regards to religion. And of course, one of the many gems I consider is the Book of Enoch. Of course, being that my name is Michael, I really love that story. It's great. It's quite the nice fit. I do love the name. It's very appropriate for this program as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the Book of Enoch is an interesting mention because I mean, it's not well, at least for in Mormonism, it's absolutely not canon. I don't know how other faiths interpret the Book of Enoch. Most of them, I think, don't. It's not as canon as the Pentateuch, for example. So, but nevertheless, and possibly tied into the fact that it's not recognized is the fact that it contains probably more information in that writing than you could really puzzle together through most of the other scriptures of the world. The Book of Enoch is a condensed magical grimoire in my view.
Oh, I see it that way too. Fantastic read for anyone who has not read that great story. And of course, I do want to go back really quickly here to your biological mother. Aside from her, she obviously accepted you, and you guys, I hope, made up. You probably, I think, well, I'm assuming perhaps you might have forgiven her for whatever she put you through. It's always good to forgive, even though, like I said, I'm not religious, but it's good to forgive people.
Yeah, I'll tell you what uh, I don't feel like there was ever the need to forgive, but actually it was interesting because I didn't. I reached a point within myself that I gave up on needing to ever meet her, and then she showed up.
That happens sometimes, especially with friends.
Yeah,
They just pop
absolutely.
up, man. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, it was a very specific. Like I had, because I definitely did and do still have issues and difficulties in life where I would otherwise not had I had another type of upbringing. But at the same time, our struggles don't necessarily define us, but they allow us to define ourselves.
Yeah, it builds character, though.
Yeah, well, and and to go way back, when I was 4 or 5 years old and had been adopted into this family, uh, I had to go through physical therapy to learn how to use my body, and most people don't have that experience as children to have to be taught how to move your hands and how to walk and I did I mean to the point that now I remember it. It is part of my memory of life.
You have a good memory.
That I had to teach myself how. And I remember when I walked a balance beam that was basically just a 2x4, and I was able to put one foot in front of the other. The satisfaction that unbelievably satisfied to have mastered myself in that way, and mastered myself in the way that I can walk like a normal person. But to me, that was a triumph, and I think that's one thing that always has defined my character is that my whole life has been about the triumphs. That it's always about pushing myself and consciously working with what I've got to make things work. And as at some point, I definitely understood that there is force or control that can be exerted outside of the physical body as well, through the mind and through spiritual channels. And like we were saying before, that did startle my family, and they did try to push me in the opposite direction, absolutely. But that just made me kind of hide it a little bit more, but not that much. But as soon as I was out of high school, the day after my graduation, I woke up and my mom had kicked me out of the house multiple times. I'd go stay with my friend. A couple months later, or a couple of weeks, or whatever, whenever it came around, I'd go back.
Yeah, surprise, Eric, you're out.
Yeah, and so yeah, it was. I was with her when I graduated at high school, and I somehow limped my way through. I made a high school career out of D's. It was I knew I actually, it was almost like a formula for me. I knew how to get D's really, really, really well. And then I did have one science teacher that did not give D's, and so I surprisingly got an F and had to retake his class. Because I never was an academic at all, even close. I actually wasn't. I was very unconfident about my intelligence.
You're a very shy kid.
Well, beyond shy.
It's interesting that you say you had trouble talking to other kids and connecting even at a young age, but I learned something really quickly when I was going through those high school years and feeling isolated and all those sort of feelings that you get that really exist only in your head. Pretty soon I learned that everyone around me was going through the same thing, and of course I related more towards the outside kids, the weirdos, the creeps, the goth kids, the ones on the outside. I was always friends with them, but I was also friends with the more popular jock kids as well. I was friends with everyone, to be honest with you. It was pretty tremendous. I was able to maintain all these sort of relationships with these people even at an early age, because I knew inside their minds that they were afraid and scared and they were awkward. And I never really, I did have those sort of feelings as well, but I got over those really quickly. And I was sort of able just to connect with everyone. It was a very unusual thing, even at a young age. I'm still kind of mortified with that. And just like you, though, Eric, I do still at times feel slightly disconnected with the rest. But that's life. Sometimes you're going to run into people that you can't connect with at all.
No, well, you're right, and I think I realized that about actually around elementary school time. I started noticing more and more, like with each passing year, that other people liked me, and I just didn't like them. The discomfort was not from them. I did pretty clearly understand that something I felt something inside of me was definitely different.
Different,
than that.
Yeah.
Oh yes. And I think maybe because I felt that was projected, but at the same time I do think that people have and always do when they meet me feel like there's something different about me, to the point that I have had people tell me while they're sitting at the table with me, "You're not human."
You look human to me. You look like a pro wrestler right now, by the way. I like it. It's a good look on you.
Yeah, thank you. I do think it is important to, and I don't try to look like a pro wrestler at all.
Well, women like that look that you're rocking right now with the facial hair, the long hair. Women totally dig that. You definitely look like a 90s bad guy.
90s bad guy. That's cool.
It's good. It's good.
No, and I always. So I used to smoke cigarettes. I switched to I smoke a vape at this point without much.
Dare you ruin your lungs with that stuff?
Oh yeah, well and it was crazy because when I started evaluating it, I had tried to quit a million times, and this is about a year and a half, 2 years ago was when I actually finally did quit, and it was due to becoming very mindful of the reasons and what is the impulse that's pushing me to do this. I asked myself that. I have always been a devout student of my own mind, my own motivations, and so just asking myself, what's driving me to do this action right now, and when it's something as destructive and non-rewarding as smoking, I mean, if I'm going to do something that harms me, it better also feel really, really good. And smoking just didn't. It was a compulsion, but it was a compulsion that I actually picked up. I remember the first time that I ever saw a person smoking was my grandpa, my
Ooh.
my mom's dad, my adopted mother's dad, and he was a bad guy. You know, I saw him as a bad guy, and he probably was in real life a bad guy. There are a lot of secrets about him that are not told around the family, and you know, there are questions about Grandpa for sure, and so
Oh
you know,
yes.
he was definitely in my eyes and in a lot of other people's eyes, I think he was a bad guy, and he went out to smoke a cigarette. I'm living with my parents. Obviously, I'm 5, 6 years old, and he goes out to outside to go smoke, and I knew that was against our religion. That was something that specifically my parents would not allow.
Right.
And so I snuck after him and watched him, and he looked around and looked back at me, and he said, you know, go, you better go back inside. Your dad doesn't want me to do this, and shakes the cigarette, and I'm like, all right. He goes, you don't want me smelling like this, and it got wired in my mind that's kind of like the bad guy, the tough guy, the James
Yes.
Dean, you know, and so
Grandpa with the bad influence here.
right.
Oh
Yeah.
damn.
Well, and when I started picking up cigarettes and smoking, when I started smoking cigarettes when I was about 12, I felt like Grandpa. That was definitely it. I felt like that badass, and I had to. I actually changed that.
Grandpa probably was a badass in his time.
I'm sure he was.
He
I'm sure
probably was, yeah.
But you know, everything is a matter of alchemy. You can't simply make lead stop being lead and become gold.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a process that has to go about, and so a transfer. And so the transfer that I had to make there was my vision. What does a badass look like? Now I had to change that to a badass looks like a guy coming out of the gym looking like he just worked out and looking sexy as hell. Like
right.
So I locked that in my mind. Okay, that's badass. Actually, Alex Skarsgård, the actor from True Blood, I saw a picture of him, the paparazzi picture of him coming out of the gym. That was my inspiration right there. And I'm like, all right, so that is a badass.
It's a good influence, though.
Not the guy that's smoking a cigarette that's coughing his lungs out.
Got to stay in shape.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you do have to. This body and this world, this three-dimensional reality, is very important. We are all looking up at the heavens and looking at the gods, and we're wanting to become like them. And whole religions are built around trying to become like them and returning to them. Well, if you grow up and you mature, you don't move into your parents' house. It's the opposite. You move on, you move away.
Yeah.
And so this physical reality is as far away from God as we can get. And we are not here by accident. We have pushed ourselves into this reality, into these physical bodies. We are singularities of consciousness and power.
Absolutely. And of course, I did want to talk a little bit of the art of magic with you here as we roll on down here. Yeah, we spent a pretty good time here talking about your personal life, giving the audience a good chance to further understand you, understand the man E.A. Koetting, the many layers of E.A. Koetting.
Yeah, many layers. It's interesting. I was working with Abaddon.
I was going to ask you about that. Yes, I wanted to get into that with you, and just to say this: for centuries, men and women have believed in the existence and power of secret knowledge, and of course, the elitism of occult societies. And of course, I've been doing some research on you, Eric, and of course I saw that headline, How to Become the Lord of Darkness himself through a physical incarnation of Abaddon. Definitely take us through that. Tell us who this being is. And of course, the other question that many are probably wondering right now, Eric, is why on earth would you want to do that?
Well, I guess the I'll answer the second question first.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, you would want to do that because it's the most amazing thing you could possibly do with your time. Really, we're talking. We are talking about power on one hand. That working with these beings, they do want to work with us very much. Very much. We don't have to induce them and incite them. We don't even really have to give them sacrifices and offerings because we are their offering. They are trying to help shape us into our next form of evolution. I've asked these beings who have been called demons, and I often call them demons because it's fun to use that paradigm, the visual aspect, the theme of the demonic realm is really intriguing and fascinating to the imagination. But what it is it opens a door to contact with these entities that have been working with humans throughout our whole existence and evolution, and they very well may have been the beings that stimulated us to evolve to become what we have. They definitely take credit for it. I don't automatically give them credit for it because every god takes credit for that. The aliens take credit for that. No matter what paradigm you look into, somebody's taking credit for our evolution. So I don't give it away so freely, but I'll say they've given me the best information so far out of any of these systems, and they are very clear that we're moving in the direction of a step in our evolution so pronounced that it would be impossible for us to even imagine what we're about to become, just like it would be impossible for the predecessor of Homo sapiens to understand what it would become, that it would go to the moon or that it would start building rockets to go to Mars.
A good point.
So yeah, our next step, and our next step is going to be definitely a merger of technology and biology, as well as spirit and flesh. And so why get on board the black magic train? Because the train's coming anyways, and we're going to have to evolve, and black magic is definitely a direct route to that. It's funny because when I was coming up in the occult, black magic was only it was the dirty magic. It was the thing that only the really super selfish people would really get involved in, or sadistic people. That it was a dirty, bad system. And as I dove into it head first, I found quite the opposite. That actually it does unravel the self in such a sometimes unpredictable way that it can definitely seem destructive and even cataclysmic. But that unraveling is what's necessary. The stimulus for evolution is always upset. It's not rest and contentment. And so black magic stirs the pot within yourself as well as within everything else. I've come at it recently, and through the past several years for sure, at a very paced way, in that I'll do what I call path workings, where I'll work my way through different systems. So I can basically.
And by the way, Eric, you teach people how to do this as well, correct?
Yeah, that's my full-time work.
For the listeners out there, yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm not honestly. So you can hire me to do a ritual for you. I'd rather you don't. Really, honestly, I charge a lot for it, specifically to not to discourage people from doing that, because I want to teach you how to do it. Because the main what I was able to do as I just dove into all these rituals is uncover the underlying system. So these rituals all have, no matter what system you're looking at, no matter where in the world you're pulling it from, the ritual has very specific elements, and one of those is an outpouring of emotion. So whatever it is that you want, you can't just want it. You have to need it. You have to turn that need into a desperation. And if you can get to that despair, you can push reality really strong. If you just have a little desire, that's sometimes not enough. And so if you really, really, really want something to happen in your life, you can get magic to make it happen for you. Much easier than you can paying somebody else to do it for you. I don't care how much you pay me. I don't want what you want as much as you do. But I do have the methods that I can show people to be able to do that themselves. The rituals, all of these rituals are really simple. Black magic is very, very simple. To refer back to the Temple of Set and Michael Aquino.
Oh yeah.
He basically has a few rituals that he performs. They're templates that he can plug anything into. That is an amazing development. Both Aquino and LaVey were able to show the world these really simple, step-by-step, plug your own desires into this spot, and assemble your own ritual. And it really is that simple. But desire is absolutely the key component, and the release of it.
I'm glad you brought up Michael Aquino. I was going to ask you about the Temple of Set and the Church of Satan, and of course the Temple of Satan. I believe that's the other one. It seems like there's all sorts of various factions nowadays. And speaking of Michael, yet again, I'm still shocked and amazed that you listened to the interview with Michael.
Yeah. I mean,
I always am, though. I'm always shocked when anyone listens and tells me. I'm always like humbly. I'm very humble and just completely surprised that anyone listens. To be completely honest with everyone out there, without saying I'm not surprised that you listen. That's usually my go-to line. That's just more of a kayfabe thing. But realistically, I am very humble about anyone who listens to the program. I'm always shocked and amazed.
Yeah. And first, I would say that's really awesome that you're shocked and amazed, because that shows that you're not after this for the fame and fortune. That you are in the trenches doing something that you absolutely love doing. And if the fame and fortune comes, it comes. If it doesn't, you're still going to do what you're going to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's I'll tell you what, that is an amazing. I think just human ability to do what we want to do, to take our will and make the world change around us. It's really we are remarkable creatures, and as a whole, I think we need to give ourselves more credit, because the religion has put these shackles on us that basically tells us that who we are as our natural beings is not enough, or that it is even worse than not enough, that it's bad. It's what's holding us back, that there's a war between our bodies and our souls, and we are one being that exists right here and right now.
Yeah, we are one.
Yeah, that is. If there's conflict, I mean, we always have conflict. Yeah, I remember I called when I was about, how old was I? I was probably 21, 22 years old, and the conflict in the Middle East was escalating, as it has just continues to do over and over and over and over again.
It's never changed. Yeah.
Right. And so I perform an evocation of a being called an Aeon. It's the Aeon of Ra, and it's from Enochian magic, the magic of John Dee, calling upon angels. Because I've dipped my toes in all the different pools.
The Godfather.
So I summon this Aeon of Ra, and I see him appear in my mirror. I used the scrying mirror for quite a while. It was a good, reliable tool that I could gaze into, and it's basically just a piece of glass that I would paint one side black and then turn it around and look through it. What it does is it gives your eyes nothingness to look into, and then it allows your deeper mind to start to activate and to connect with whatever information it needs to connect with. And so I look into the mirror, and I see this Aeon of Ra, and he definitely very masculine entity. human-ish, in humanoid form, but absolutely radiant. And I asked him, are we going to war? And specifically referring to the Middle East and Iraq. And he said, you'll always be at war. That's the nature of your species. You will always be at war. The key is not to be at war with yourself. And it's interesting because when I bring mundane matters to spirits, almost all the time they throw it back in a way that just doubles down on the deeper and deepest meanings of things. And so there are interesting predictions that can happen, but there's also even more interesting prophecies. And I'd say the difference is that a prophecy is always it's always fulfilled, and it's fulfilled in the moment by the person who's reading it as being part of the prophecy. There comes a moment, and to refer again to my work with Abaddon, there comes a moment where you do have to, if you really want to push magic and you want to push your spirituality as far as you can, you need to literally become and embody each character within your mythos. And so that means becoming your own gods, your angels, your saviors, and your devils, and becoming it in a way that you are fundamentally possessed by these entities that you worship, that they come through you, they act in this world through you, they experience this reality through you, and you experience all of that with them, and they don't ever leave you. So you inherit their mind and their power, and you can become basically a host to legions.
Yes,
but they're not.
This is where I wanted to bring up some of the protection against demons. That's what John Dee specifically was all about as well. He took that precaution, no doubt. And that's what reminds me to even ask you, are there any potential dangers for someone to even get involved with any of these things? Let's say if they're new, because I'm sure there's someone out there listening to this either now or later who will definitely contemplate into, I guess, summoning or even trying to summon something of this sort. Is that even safe to do?
No, not by any means is it safe to do. No, it's probably one of the most dangerous things you'll ever do.
Let's do it then.
It's funny. People have. I come across and talk to interesting people, have interesting conversations about the time that they once tried out magic, and it splits almost in half, where half the people will say, nothing really happened, and then the other half will say, I'm never going to touch it again. It is evil.
True.
And that split is interesting. Then you have, even within the engaged realm, those like me that say, yes, it is evil, and run towards it. And when I say evil, I mean unnatural. That there are definitely times that I'll perform a ritual or I'll have an experience that is so beyond what a human being should even have put in their hands. We absolutely are not worthy of this power, but we still have it. And so since we do, I like to play with it and really see how far I can push it. And what it turns out is that you can push it limitlessly. That if you can imagine it, you literally can make it happen. You can create it first in the magical realm, and then push it into the physical realm. And yeah, so if somebody wants to have an effect, let's say they want love, or they want money, or love and money are two of the big ones. Revenge is a really big one too. They can definitely call on a being, a spirit, and ask them to do that, or it's not even asking them, it's pointing them towards it. These beings want to do the work. They are power.
So this works then, Eric, in other words.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It works terrifyingly well. I have journals filled with cause and effect that I perform this ritual, and then and I date it, and then a couple of days, maybe at the most a couple of weeks down the road, I fill in an entry, conclusion on previous working, and it is a science that is not allowed yet. It's getting to be much more accepted and acceptable, to the point that it is being pushed. The reality of magic is being pushed by not calling it magic. That instead is called the law of attraction, or manifestation,
Right.
or the law of abundance. There are all kinds of. Well, we're talking about witchcraft. Either way, it's just I like to dive into the spirituality of it rather than lean away from it.
Going into church is you're still doing witchcraft, in my opinion. You're still asking for something, and wishing for something, and praying for something. It's still witchcraft to me.
Yeah, well, and it's all just a matter of interacting with the spiritual forces that be. I mean, when you see a possession occur in Haitian Vodun, that's no different than what you'll see with the Pentecostals or with tantrics. That it's a matter of getting into a state of ecstasy and then turning that ecstasy towards a specific either outcome or connection.
So let me ask you this really quickly, Eric. I'm sorry to cut you off so rudely like that.
You're good.
I'm rude sometimes. Eric, I'm curious, have you casted any spells, any hexes, anything of that nature to, let's say, an adversary, and did it work? I asked the same question to Mike Hideous when he was on here a while back, and he said something, he did cast a spell, and it did work, but he didn't exactly tell me what he did. So I just remembered right now, I'm wondering what the hell did he... I wonder what he did. And so now I have to email him.
Right. Yeah. And really, if it's already worked, then there's no harm in him telling about it, I guess.
Yeah.
There is I hate to use these terms, but a law of secrecy that makes the conspiracy theorists go crazy when they hear phrases like that. But you want to, when you perform a ritual, you have to want the ritual to work for the sake of getting the thing that you want, not to show off to others that you can get that thing.
Yeah.
That it does have to be. You do have to have a real, true desire to have that. And so there's actually, before and after the ritual is performed, you don't tell anybody about it. You don't talk about it. You don't say, "Oh, I'll get them." You'll see when the spell works. Any of that is taking power away from the ritual itself. And so you act like you're not doing any spells at all towards that person, and absolutely they do work. And there's LaVey, in his Satanic Bible, when he talks about the destruction ritual, he makes it, he frames it in such a way that makes you think that it's the fear that the victim has that kills them. That you go up to somebody and you say, "I'm going to put a spell on you," and
Yes.
and then their fear starts working. Well, a really good magician is never going to tell anybody what they're doing, and so
Right.
it takes that out of the equation entirely. And so when you start aiming this, you do know that it works absolutely and reliably. And yes, I have cast curses, hexes. A hex. The word hex it comes from German, obviously, but I like to kind of separate my terms a little bit. I will say hex when I'm placing a curse on a place, on a location.
Right.
Location. If I'm placing a curse on somebody, it's definitely a curse. There's also bindings that you can do. If somebody's trying to move against me, I'll bind them, and bindings can be worse than curses. And so all these little niches within the different spells that you can use is really fun. But they do work,
They do
absolutely.
work. Okay.
They,
Interesting. And along those lines, have you ever sensed that someone has put something on you, perhaps, Eric?
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
felt
yeah.
that before?
At this point, I mean, I remember the first time I did. I was about 16, 17, and this and I knew who it was from instantly. I was in my bedroom, relaxing, about to go to sleep. I'm sure that's usually when magical things spontaneously happen. Is when people are falling asleep because you're dropping into the theta brainwave state.
Beta
And
waves, yeah.
yeah, and so once you dip into the theta state, you are an open doorway, and you can see into the other worlds pretty clearly sometimes. And so, as I dip into that state, I could feel. First, it was just like a terror, the feeling of terror out of nowhere. And then I located it. For me, that's always been one of the first things that I'll do if I'm tracking a spirit or if I'm evoking a spirit, is I'll determine their location. Once I can do that, then it's just a matter of zeroing in on all the rest of the information, and it's almost like a magnetic thing. Like I'll just ask myself, well, where is this spirit at, and where is this force gravitating, and I get a specific location, a sense of the corner that it's at, and I connected with, and it did seem like a mass of darkness, almost like a Doberman pincher made into a shadow that would come to attack, and I connected with its mind somehow, and I could see.
Wild.
Yeah, very wild. I could see the person who had sent it to me. He was a fellow that practiced Wicca and was always after me about.
Damn. So this guy just had it out for you, and he thought one day, oh, I'm gonna really put it to Eric here.
Well, it's funny because that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
But that's not so rare. It's actually a weird thing to think about that as I was coming into all of this, magic was nowhere, specifically black magic, the left hand path was nowhere near the frenzy that it has created socially, and everywhere you look, there's black magic being represented in movies and every form of media possible.
Everywhere.
You've got you drive through a city, count how many pentagrams you see. It's like everybody is using these ancient symbols of power.
Hey, I'm glad you said that, because there's that very popular movie, that a child's movie, Aladdin, and that's been very popular now. And the genie in the bottle, that goes back to the jinn and the whole Islam religion, I guess you could say. The Islamic people, they're very much into the jinn and demonic possessions. I think they're really into that. There's all sorts of stuff in the Quran about Satan and different demons and so forth. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. So look at you look at Mecca, right? People will go to this spot where there's a very interestingly angled cube, a black cube.
Right.
And now the black cube is a symbol of Saturn. And then they will put their hands on this cube, and there's a spot on the cube that has meteorite fragments, something from the stars that fell to Earth. And they put their hands on this and rotate counterclockwise, widdershins, which is the direction you walk to invoke the devil, or to invoke anything dark and sinister. And if you look and trace back the history of Islam, it started really, or derived from the Nabateans. The Nabateans were a wandering tribe that would wander around the Middle East as merchants. And they sold just about everything. So as they wandered and selling their wares, they encountered all of these different civilizations, took little pieces of this, that, or the other, and incorporate it into their own beliefs, and then that basically
it's a fascinating history, right?
Oh no,
It's
it
crazy.
really is amazing. Humans are really we really are amazing beings, and we've our our capability to shape our reality regardless of environmental circumstances is just remarkable. And I'm actually really excited for what evolutionary possibilities are going to be presented as we start giving birth to children on other planets. We've evolved to the point that we have because of stimulus that have occurred on this planet. We're going to encounter a completely different set of not only physical stimulus, but also energetic. I would imagine if I travel, and I travel a lot, I can feel shifts in different areas. You step into you cross a line that's not even drawn anywhere, and you can feel a shiver, and you're in a different zone. You can feel that. I can only imagine what it would be like to step onto Mars and feel what a
Oh
shift
yeah.
that would be.
I'm glad you brought that up. But before we jump into that topic, there, I did want to say I did enjoy reading your book, Evoking Eternity.
Thank you.
I love that one.
Me too. Actually, I when people ask me what to recommend for them to get started or to push themselves forward, Evoking Eternity is really the one I've got to point to, because it does. All of my books are fun. I love myself as a writer. I remember
You're a
in
good
seventh.
writer, by the way. I do need to say that now publicly. Here, I need to put you over. You are a good writer. When I was reading this, I didn't get bored once.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, and I aspired to be an author long before I ever considered anything about the occult. In seventh grade, we had to write a report on our favorite author. I wrote a report on myself, and
Did you?
yeah, and I got a D on it. And once again, I made a living off of D's, and
That's funny.
and so my teacher wrote on there. Right next to the D, needs to be a real author or something along those lines. And so I went up to her after class and said, I am going to be an actual author, by the way. That I've written about myself in this way because I see where I'm going.
Yeah, you followed your true will.
I'll tell you what, it's I followed and used it as a tool to manifest the things that I desired. Once again, the lesson that I learned from learning, having to learn how to walk and how to use my body as a child has always been with me. You don't do things free. You have to work.
Yeah, man. It seems like you really do appreciate having to learn these sort of things. And now, as you're getting older, you start to appreciate small things like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. So, yeah.
Amazing. And of course, Eric, I did want to ask you this before we even shift gears ever so slightly here. I was curious what your opinion was on karma. I always ask different people about this. I'm under the notion that karma actually doesn't exist. When bad things happen, some people will say, oh, it was God's will, or it was this, it was that. He did something awful. It's coming back to him. To be honest with you, I see these things as human error, and we as humans are problematic. We are clumsy, we are dumb, we get over emotional at times. All sorts of issues happen. Sometimes these things just do occur, and sometimes it has nothing to do with some sort of karma at all. Like I said, I've always been pretty much on that notion that karma does not exist, because this world would certainly not exist if karma was actually a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be political, but look at look at who's president. I mean, if karma existed, we would have a completely different arrangement in society and politics and in warfare. We would be living in a completely different world if karma was real, wouldn't we? it, the fact that people can believe that is staggering. That you, if you do something bad, that you get 3 times back, or whatever. People, that's, I guess, more Wiccan. But everybody who does believe in karma does believe in that, like a reciprocity of intention and energy. But what's really being discussed when you look at the history of karma, you have to look back at the Bhagavad Gita.
Ah, yes.
One of the Vedic texts that as right at the opening of it, Krishna is riding forth into battle with Arjuna, and Krishna basically shows and tells Arjuna the highest reality, shows him a glimpse of all that exists and could be possible. Arjuna, knowing this, says, "Well, I can't possibly go out and slay my fellow brothers in battle now." And Krishna says, "Well, no, you have to. This is your lot. This is what you're supposed to do. This is your dharma. Dharma being the thing that you must do. And so you go do it, but just don't be attached to it. It's the attachment that causes the negativity. That if you do the things you do and you bind that into your being, your essence, that you say, I have killed, therefore I am a killer, then you have bound yourself pretty heavily. If you instead are able to see that you are just a being that is being a being and having an experience, then you see the plane levels out. Where it gets problematic with the belief in karma is that if you believe it, it's probably true that you can start creating that for yourself. I had a period. I've learned from a lot of different systems and a lot of different mentors, and some of them were definitely very right-hand path, what people would refer to as spiritual masters, and they ascended masters even. And in working with them very intensely, they convinced me of karma, and not only of karma, but of instant karma. That if I did something that's against my true will, or something that's not in alignment or is incongruent with my personal values and ethics, that it would immediately compound upon me until I corrected myself. And I definitely had that experience. I think that most people should and do come to that experience of, but it is a self-created one where you do something that's against your ethics, and you can kind of see that. But it's in the form of natural consequence. But it's natural consequence that sometimes we don't understand. That we think negatively, and negative things can happen. I think that's more true than a karmic law.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me. Well put there. And of course, that leads me to another question. In terms of synchronicity, what's your take on that? I always found it kind of unusual, and I'm not sure if this has ever happened to you, but sometimes when I think of a friend or a family member, for, let's say, for the time being, let's say, for a good 5 minutes, I'll think of this person, and the next day, I'll get a phone call or a text from that person, and this has happened multiple times to me. And it still continues to happen to me today.
Yeah, so that is a regular occurrence. You just the night before last, I went and sat on my back porch. I've got a beautiful nature view into some canyons in my backyard. So I went and popped a beer open and sat on the back porch. And I had recently been in San Francisco or around that area with my good buddy Nate, and we hung out a lot in his backyard. And he's got this perfect round table that we would sit around, and an umbrella for the shade, and it was a beautiful setting. So as I sat there in my backyard, I started thinking about it. I'm going, Nate, that was so fun hanging out with you, buddy. And sure enough, my phone rings, and there's Nate on the phone. Hey, just thinking about you, bud. How you doing? And that's a constant occurrence. I think with consciousness of things.
Yeah, what is that? It's crazy.
As we become, well, what is that? That's all points are connected, are one point. There's only one mind in all of the universe. It's just experiencing itself in different bodies, in different ways. And so when you do connect with people intimately, and especially when you connect with people spiritually, you are more open to that aspect of yourself, or that aspect of your reality that is that person. And I have had multiple times the experience of what you could call the ego death, where
Yes.
You realize that really you are in a dream, and every person is you are them, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. And as you dive into that, that opens up the possibility of things like telepathy and communication with people at a distance. It becomes very, very real when we start understanding that it's all, not only is it all that we're one mind in some woo-woo way, but we have the dimensions, the three dimensions of height, depth, and width. We also have the fourth dimension of time. On top of that, we have the fifth dimension of consciousness. Consciousness itself is a dimension that all things are embedded into. You sit and watch the bees pollinate gardens, and you watch how plants communicate with each other, how the radiation and the frequency of the sun does certain things not only to our planet but to us, and then it bounces off of these other planets and creates a different frequency entirely. There are all of these different forces that are occurring around us, and it is all very, very conscious. It's all
nice.
On
yes.
Every bit of it.
You threw me for a loop, by the way, when you brought up the Bhagavad Gita. Love that book, by the way.
Oh yeah,
great read. And go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome, and it's one that you have to, at least for me, when I read it or a few other scriptures. You mentioned Book of Enoch earlier. Right. It's one that's very similar, where I'll read a chapter, usually about a chapter, and then I'll have to sit with it, sometimes for days, just letting myself digest.
Very interesting. And of course, there's a few more things I did want to ask you. And going back to these groups like the Church of Satan, let's use them for an example. Has anyone from that church or any other church or secret society, quote unquote, have any of them approached you about anything? Have they harassed you about anything?
No, not from any of the groups directly. It's so I think that there's an understanding maybe that what I'm doing and what they're doing are not the same thing. That I'm not competition, even though I'm taking all of their customers. It's every religious organization out there, whether it's an occult organization or otherwise, they're not legitimate in my eyes. I mean, I'm sorry to say it. Even something that like the Temple of Set. I love the creation of it. I love the creator, but I also have to recognize that it's not legitimate in that there's not a defined good or service being issued for a defined amount of money. That there are initiations that you're paying for. There are group rituals that you can buy your way into, and that every magical or spiritual organization out there, once it becomes an organization and a religion, at that point it loses its ability to evolve, and it basically gets locked into this political game.
Great answer, by the way.
Thanks. I know. Well, and I've got friends who are members of the Temple of Set that are and that is one of those that I do respect the most, even though I still don't respect what the structure of a religious or spiritual organization represents.
Right.
I do like the teachings, and that is something that I'll look at all of these systems, every religion and a magical tradition out there. and I dive into them. And I basically just rob them. I just rob them of their secrets, of their techniques. I take those and I just make them into my own thing. I use them for my own benefit, and I teach other people how to use them. I steal their tricks.
I knew you were going to step on a few toes. That's kind of why I asked you. But definitely,
Yeah.
and then sometimes you're going to have to step on a few toes, Eric.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I started worrying about what other people thought of what I was doing, I would not get very far.
And so, obviously, you're aware of the harassment that you do face online. Many people they try to slander you, and all of that noise.
I'll tell you, with back to the consciousness of things, I'm aware of it, and the when I've become aware of it, and especially in the past, at one point it became crippling almost. I started really, really, really caring about what people would say or think or do, and it the more I paid attention to it, the worse it got. On one hand, like the first rule is you don't feed the trolls.
Yeah, right.
I had to learn that the hard way by feeding the trolls, and then seeing that that just made them a lot hungrier. And
well, you got to love them sometimes too.
Well,
gotta embrace them. Gotta embrace them sometimes.
You have got to, because they're there. No matter what you do, they're there. And so what I've started doing is I've started just putting them on tasks. So if I do let's say I'm going to film a video every week. I do a video blog about some magical topic, and if I think to myself, what are the trolls going to think about this? What are they going to make fun of? What are they going to say about this? If that thought crosses my mind and I'm able to identify that thing, I usually just lean into it. Okay, so you don't like the eyeliner that I wore, you're really going to hate this eyeliner. And so you just give them little things to do, little things to occupy them. Among many of the things that I've studied, I've definitely studied hypnosis very, very carefully, and you can have a pretty profound effect in people if you can get them to do three things, and that's to stop what they're doing is number one. Number two is to engage somehow, to stop and to look at what you're doing, and then to react. If you can make them stop, look, and react, you've got them. They are working for you, and so I have got the trolls working for me, and that's fine. I have a lot of clients who come to me who say, I heard a lot of crazy stuff about you. I had to check it out for myself, and then after having a conversation with me, they're usually able to come away from it almost all the time.
That's how it goes. Case. Yeah, that's how it goes. But you also have to consider it as free advertising as well. Love your trolls; they make you stronger. That's what Briggs said in the chat room, and I agree.
Yeah, it's well, and it did get to a point at one point where I did have to take legal action. Start sending out stalking injunctions.
Oh yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's when it gets dark, though.
I'll tell you what. That it did get scary for sure, and especially for loved ones, family members that were also receiving harassment. It did get scary, and once again, that's when I just invoked the almighty power of the attorney and call him up and put him on it.
Yeah, you summoned him.
He's very good at his job. So, but it's. Unless it gets to a threatening point, I just not only do I not care, I like it. It's whatever. I don't care. It's fun. We're playing a game. That's something that I think people don't understand is we're all playing a game.
It's a mind war.
Well, to use one of our mutual friends' terms, yeah, it's absolutely a mind war, and it's occurring at every moment. I will absolutely target the mind state that I want to create in my audience by very simple cues, the colors behind me, or the shirt that I'm wearing that conflicts with maybe the message that I'm saying that has a deeper embedded level. You have to be aware of all of these. Once again, with Aquino's work, his his work that specifically talks about war and how physical war is so silly, and he's pointed that out on several occasions, that there's no reason to go kill each other. We can do this whole war thing on a mental level and start feeding each other our ideas, and then the best ideas will be the ones that come out ahead.
It's a world of wisdom, that Aquino.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, and I do see that occurring as well, where at this point the corporations they have more weight than the government does.
Oh, the corporations have become much larger than any government entity. We've seen that time and time again. They have so much power, and places like YouTube, for instance, that won't exist, especially for someone like myself or you. They'll eventually get rid of us from there.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've been going through a little bit of not even a hassle. It's just it's a couple of clicks of a button, but Facebook is needing to now verify that I am who I say I am, and that my message is not dangerous to society, and that mainly thanks to the election debacle and
Right.
social media's play with that. So, but at the same time, once again, it's all a silly game. Like I myself, I don't spend a lot of time on the internet. I spend time researching on the internet for sure. But as far as hanging out on the internet, I got things to do.
Yeah, why would you want to hang out there? It's a place of heathens, but it's always fun to talk to my fellow heretics like yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what. It is the internet has allowed spectacular communication. It does allow for that battle of ideas to take on shape, where the internet presents a certain democracy of ideas, that you can put your ideas up and the world can see them, and we'll probably be able to see them forever. And so if your ideas are good enough, they are going to rise to the surface, I think, and be seen. If your ideas are not good, you're going to find out.
That's true.
On the internet.
That's show business.
It is, and it's show business that is. It's even to say it's show business, man. Look at how that's changed.
It all goes back to P.T. Barnum, my friend.
Yeah,
that's where it really begins.
Well, P.T. Barnum was an amazing psychologist. His ability to look into the distraction even just for the sake of distraction. It's the mind is wanting amazing things.
That's a powerful tool indeed.
And you look at the symbolism. Now, here's what I don't know about P.T. Barnum, and I wish I did. Is he an occultist? Because if he's not, he stumbled onto some very interesting secrets. If he is an occultist, then he is a genius occultist, because he uses it's even the term three-ring circus. That's a reference again to Saturn. Now you have Saturn being invoked all over the world by the most powerful people. You look at some of the interesting rituals that go on. There was the gate opening ritual, or the bridge opening ritual for CERN, that was really interesting video to see. This ritual being played out, where there are demons being birthed and battles between the demons and angels, and this is being applauded by the Clintons and the people in the highest positions are attending this. But the world looks at it and goes, oh, whatever. It's just it's a silly play. Well, no, it's not a silly play. It's a ritual. There are very specific rituals that are being engaged in without people even knowing it. Some people knowing it. Most people, I think, even those who are standing and applauding and are funding it, most of them don't even know what they're engaged in.
Absolutely. And of course, since we are sort of talking about the political realm here, not so long ago, maybe about a month or so ago, they were making a big ruckus yet again about the Baphomet statue out there, and I forgetting where it's at. Is it in Arkansas? Is that where it's at?
I think they have one up in Arkansas. That's the Temple of Satan. I think is those folks.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Lucian Greaves. I think that's his name. What's your perspective on that guy? I know he has the whole eye thing going on. That's actually a pretty good gimmick there. I'm not sure if that's real or not, but I dig the look.
Yeah, well, so then, and I think that actually what you just said summarizes that particular organization is the look.
That's what they're doing.
It's all for show, and it's
so they're
it's
LARPers.
Well, they're doing the same thing that so many other satanic and occult organizations have done. Is they are using these ancient powerful symbols and invoking these powerful entities and forces half-heartedly for intentions other than harnessing the power itself. They're usually trying to have power, manipulative power over others, causing others to worship them or to inflate their own sense of self-worship or being worshipped by others. There's a whole crazy ego head game that goes on within all of these occult organizations.
You're not impressed with him, in other words.
So to be fair, I've never met him, so I can't really make too much of a judgment call. But
look who's afraid of Lucian Greaves.
Yeah,
no, I'm joking.
Yeah, right.
It's a joke.
Yeah. No. So, well, I'll tell you what. He has power of attorney for sure.
You should be afraid of that.
That's a very real power for sure. He knows their whole. What I'm interested in, and I've never actually reached out to try to have this conversation because maybe I'm just too busy or something, but I would really like to know from him what the end goal is. Like, what is he actually trying to achieve?
I see. He's been all over the media, so it would be, I'm glad we're talking about this since he's been all over the place. The poster child for Satanism now.
Yeah, well, and there's not much. Once again, there's a whole lot of show. But a lot of it is show, and I've spoken with people who have attended private rituals, with Lucian and with that group, and I've basically reported that it's a lot of show. That it's something to watch and observe and go, oh wow, that's kind of eyes wide shut style. That's shocking and fun that you're invoking Satan, but nobody is actually feeling Satan in the room. When you get into true contact with the Prince of Darkness, it's an unmistakable presence. There's no question about it that you are in the presence of something that could easily squash you, but chooses not to because you're in league with it, and that's not something that I feel like that group or their practice. I don't even know that they have practices. I don't even know that they have rituals that are unique to them that they have used to call upon these forces. It looks like they have demonstrations of plays that they're doing. They're doing skits. They're running skits, and that's fine. Skits are fun. It yes. Activates the imagination, but it's an entirely different thing when you put power into it. I've known. I knew a fellow who was an Orthodox Catholic priest, and he was also an occultist. And he would take the things that he learned in the occult and apply them in his masses, and he would see basically the effects he could have by putting different intentions into the sacrament, for instance, when he gives it out, and to see the effects that would have in the people's private lives as he's observing them. So his parishioners were basically his lab rats, and the shift that was palpable when he would call upon these powers, and even in the name of Jesus and calling upon the Holy Spirit, that he was able to shift the energy around him to a point that the parishioners and his upline made comments about it and kind of eventually pushed him out of the priesthood because they could tell that he was actually engaging it spiritually. And that's like kind of a no-no within these systems. It's even you look at the Temple of Set, that it basically emerged as a desire to become more authentic to the spirituality than the Church of Satan.
Absolutely.
And it has since spawned other groups that have done so as well. That there is a knowledge or a knowing, I should say, among some people that there's something else that we can reach out and touch, that another world that we can connect to, and none of these churches offer. In the church of my upbringing, the LDS faith, Joseph Smith, their founder, found himself in this conundrum of knowing that there was a God or a presence out there that he needed to contact, but every church he went to was just didn't have it. They just didn't have it, and he finally came to the recognition that he would have to create his own. And that's the backstory. I understand that a good deal of that backstory is also a lie. That he was also a con man and he was after something completely different. But nonetheless, that story does inspire that. Each of us should take that and none of these faiths have enough. That at the end of the day, it has to be our own personal contact with these forces, and then religion is unnecessary. Government is unnecessary. Once we have fully recognized and inherited our own power, we are a law unto ourselves, and really makes useless all of these other organizations. And so I would say then that all of these organizations exist for those who have not had the experience yet, because as soon as they do, they're out.
Yes, many fair points there, and we kind of are running out of time very soon here, so I did want to finish up with asking you a little bit about extraterrestrials and, of course, Solomon. Many wonder what is the significance of Solomon and what he has to do with any of this. That of course is for the newer listeners out there. And of course, am I pronouncing this correctly? Is it Goetia?
Oh yeah, so I don't know to answer that question. It's I say Goetia.
Goetia, okay.
Goetia, yeah, but I've also have a Southern Utah drawl, so
Yes.
It's hard to say what's pronounced how. But and actually, I get I'll get people that are very insistent that it matters, that these spirits care what you call them, or that the actual sound. There are some very, very few sounds that of themselves have power. Those being basically bija mantras and a few specific incantations, but for the most part, it doesn't matter. People get into these ridiculous right-isms about it that are fun. But anyways, the Goetia, I say Goetia. It's good enough for me.
Yeah,
and
that works.
A good deal of the modern grimoires that we have, the Goetia, the Grand Grimoire, these kind of point back to Solomon.
Right.
And he, by one of the legends, that he was able to summon forth and constrain and trap 72 demons in a vessel. And then since he had them trapped, they were able to do his will. And one of the legends is that the Temple of Solomon was built by these demons, not by human hands. And that's what actually lends towards Solomon being the most wise. Wise being even the term wise one or wise man being magi, a magus, a magician. And so Solomon is kind of the proto magician,
right?
And that's the mythology of it. It's a fun mythology for sure. I don't know that don't invest myself too much in it because it. I mean, I invest myself in the Goetia, definitely.
Yeah,
Because
there's the reason why I ask is there is one guy that I do recall from way back many years ago by the name of Poke Runyon. That's a name I have not heard in such a long time, but I do recall one of his books, and I was just wondering if you had, read any of his material in the past or ever came across any of it. He's old
Oh
school.
yeah, no, Poke Runyon. Um, I've definitely come across his work, and he's been, one. I wouldn't say a big influence. He. I don't know that I actually have learned anything new from Poke Runyon, but he points to some interesting things. He has definitely pointed the way and said, "Look over here at this. Look over here at that." Yeah, he also
Yeah,
developed a cult following.
right.
It's really interesting to see, and it's funny because I had heard through gossip and rumors that he at one point was asked about me,
Oh,
and he didn't have pleasant things to say, I guess.
you have to bring him in here.
Well, I'll tell you what, and once again, these are gossips and rumors, but
We'll clear the air.
well, when as far as I see, like he and I are talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah.
We're basically have the same message, the same techniques. So
Yeah, you guys are on the same side here.
yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what, I do feel that more and more with just about everybody. Even as I just barely slammed every religion and magical tradition out there just a couple minutes ago, I still have to look at the underlying teachings and the underlying messages that we're all speaking are actually pretty aligned. Magical wars are interesting to they're interesting and disturbing. When I first started realizing that I wasn't the only one practicing this stuff in the world, and I started meeting people locally or coming across people locally, I could feel, and I still can feel, the higher vibration or the extended aura of a magical person. And I had to learn. I guess I learned pretty quickly that's also kind of a danger sign. That's a warning sign, because there is a territorialism and a predatory nature within black magicians, for sure.
Interesting.
When we opened this conversation actually by talking about that and embracing that predatory urge, and that does incite sometimes disagreements and discord where it's not necessary. And so, with Poke or with anybody else that's out there, my invitation is always, let's collaborate.
Yeah, talk it out.
Well, and we can have a communication about it, for sure, or not. Either way, but we're regardless of what we consciously think about about what's going on.
There's that synchronicity again, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then there's something else that seems to be pulling the strings. That I'm the ship of reality is not just my ship. We're all on the ship together. We all have our hands on a sail, and we're pushing its direction. Those of us that engage magic are pushing with more force than just about anybody else out there. In my opinion, this is the wind at the sails.
Yes, and we got about 10 more minutes left here before we do have to hit a break here and go on with the next guest and part ways with you here, Eric. And it's been a lovely time. It's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. And as we wrap it up here tonight, I did want to ask you just two more things here. Your thoughts on extraterrestrials. I know you had your own sort of experience with all of that. Definitely tell us a little bit about that here.
Yeah. I mean, I had an experience of I don't know what, maybe it's I would call it placebo aliens. That as I started to wonder and then worry about their reality and their possible intervention in my reality, that I started noticing a spot on my neck that I can still locate and feel where it should be. There was what felt like a metal chip under my skin, and I started. I was maybe 13, 14 years old, and I started noticing it. And the more I noticed it, the more intense and physical it got, the more obvious it got. And I guess I hit a point of having to either go to my parents and say, hey, let's take me to the hospital because I've got a chip in me, and go down that road,
Yeah.
or not do that. And I guess I just made the decision that that's not the road I want to go down, and the whatever that was went away. And I at that time, as I was noticing the chip, or what I was calling the chip, I started to think that maybe I was having these flashes of what could have been a memory from the night before, and the more I thought it was real, the more real it became. So that was my alien experience. I think that probably contrasts quite a bit against other people who have had true abduction encounters. That I experienced something that was of my own creation from my own mind. I am almost certain of that. What some other people experience is something different entirely. Kind of like earlier when I said that what you witness in LSD state is real, but it's not what you witness in an evocation of a spirit. They're completely different worlds. In the same way, what's happening with the aliens is a completely different experience than what's happening magically. But it is equally interesting. And places like the ranch.
Skinwalker. Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, where all of these things are happening, kind of stacked on top of each other. That kind of leads to me to wonder if what we're talking about is less about other worlds and heavens and hells, and more just other dimensions or planes of existence that are overlapping.
Yeah, interesting. Great point. And of course, I did want to finish up here and ask you if you like horror movies. I've always liked them myself. Even some bad ones can be quite amusing and enjoyable under the right circumstances. And after watching a lot of your videos, Eric, I thought, honestly, too, I'm not making this up here. I'm not joking around when I say this. I thought if Eric directed a horror film or came up with a script or anything, it would be incredible. It would definitely sell. And I got that vision in my head right away. As soon as I was watching a couple of your videos, I kept thinking, why hasn't anyone approached Eric yet on this?
I don't know. They're welcome to. Well, no, I have been approached to do like a reality TV show.
Oh, okay.
And that is the furthest from what I want to do with my life.
Right.
Honestly, that is probably the most disgusting form of entertainment to me, is reality
TV. Yeah.
And so, and I had a conversation with the producer of a show that I basically said, look, I've got the rituals that I do and the cool magical experiences I have. That's maybe 10% of my job. The other percent is sitting behind a computer and coding and editing and marketing. That would make for a really boring TV show. So I basically talked him out of being interested in it by giving him the reality of my life. But I do love horror films. I love cinematography as a whole, but horror allows the imagination to go to certain places and to do certain things that it otherwise can't. And I especially like, he says, even the bad ones. I especially like the bad ones.
I love the bad ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, where you just get the cheese factor.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
And so as soon as you notice it, it's like hypnosis. Just because you're being hypnotized, people say that they can then fight it. Well, that's part of it, is that you go, this is so cheesy, and then you fall into it even more. And that is something that people will say about some of my works, is that it's over the top and cheesy. And exactly, you watched it, didn't you?
I liked it. It's good. It's good stuff. I'm telling you, I think you would definitely have a whole nother career. If someone would give you the chance to do that, someone definitely needs to step up and ask you, like as a consultant or something, because I definitely feel like you have some great ideas.
Yes, consulting could be fun. Yeah, I would honestly, I would hesitate changing professions too much because I do love what I do so much.
Right, right.
I have been thanks to some rituals and pacts that I have made. I don't really have much want for things of
Yeah,
this world.
you're cool with what's going on now.
I really am.
Okay.
But if experiences come to have, I'll never turn down a new experience, really. So,
Nice.
I'm always happy to try things, but I am so in love with what I'm doing, and whatever I do with my life, it does have to involve teaching people these important secrets. Has got to be center to whatever I make my life about at all times.
And now I have the anthology of sorcery revelations up on the screen. That photograph image I got from your website. You have these other notable, I guess, speakers, and yeah, they're like speakers, correct?
Yeah. So speakers, authors,
Authors, right?
artists. Once again, we're moving into an age of collaboration and cooperation, and that's being pushed by Become a Living God very, very seriously. Anybody who doesn't like what I'm doing, the invitation is open to come and do better. And a lot of people have taken me up on that offer, and a lot of people I think are showing me up really through my own organization. Got Michael W. Ford that's come on, and he has written Apotheosis, and this book just blows me away. It's a beginner's guide to Luciferianism, and I read it. And I've been reading Michael W. Ford ever since he started writing books, and he just gets better and better and better. And now he's publishing with me.
Cool.
It really is an amazing experience to be able to work hand in hand with my heroes.
Yeah, man, it's come full circle. And again, I do want to thank you tremendously for being a part of the program. I had such a great time having this conversation with you, and I know other people out there, my listeners, and perhaps even your listeners who will stumble upon this, they definitely will enjoy it. Finding out who EA Koetting really is, the many layers.
Oh, I feel like you were able to peel back a few layers that are probably going to be new and interesting for a lot of people. It's been a pleasure, Michael.
Amazing. And go ahead and plug anything you want. I want to give you the final word if there's anything you want to say to anyone out there, any words of wisdom, any words of advice. The floor is yours, Eric. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm really doing, my real work here is I'm putting up a big flag, a flag that has an inverted pentagram on it, and it's a symbol of the call to darkness, to the left-hand path, to everything that's mysterious, that's unknown, and that's dangerous, and exciting. And that's an invitation for everybody who feels that to step forward. Not everybody. This isn't for everybody. This is not for everybody. If it's not for you, you're going to know it very, very fast. Either
Right.
You won't be interested. This might look like foolishness to you. That's fine. It's not for you. For the others, those who do feel it and who know that there's something here, you've got to dive into it. You can go to becomealivinggod.com. You can go there, check my stuff out. But more importantly than that, whether you check my stuff out or not, follow that call. Dive into this and see where it goes, because it is a rabbit's hole, and you are going to learn and discover so many things.
Call of Cthulhu. And yes, Eric, again, tremendous job. I had so much fun. We'll definitely do this again in the near future. And of course, when you'll be on, that's when we'll bring in Michael Aquino.
I would love it. I would love it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to make it happen, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care and mahalo.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That was the one and only Eric Koetting. And of course, it is that time to go on a break. And when we return, we do have a second guest here. We will be talking about the outer body journey that we all take every night. Some can control it. Some can't. Some people don't even dream. Isn't that amazing? It really is. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
thought of breaking through? Ain't it part of what you do? Catch a victim while he's dumb, break his larynx with your time. It's time to get high. Well, this ain't no goddamn dream. It's exactly what it seems. Wake up today just to lay back down and say, I won't be coming back. Let's call it a heart attack. Give me some of that knack. This is just a final payback. They all flipped on me, took my passions, left me be. When I had a place to sit, goddamn attitude to fit. Talk real smooth, knew where to spit. Things have changed and I have quit. Got nothing to look forward to but backlash full of lies. You're too late where you're going. This is fate. The whistle's blowing. It's much too late. It's too late. You're much too late. Like a piss hole punk with his nose.
And welcome back to the program. Good to see you out there. And of course, yeah, part 2 is in order. My goodness, my throat there. Had to hit the cough button there. I apologize. And of course, we will be joined by a very special guest for part 2 of the program here. Paul Mamakos. Let's bring him in. And Paul, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi, Michael.
Fantastic. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here also. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also blown away about how you were even able to find the program.
Well, yeah, I saw you on the Discord to the Out of Body Journal, and I looked at your profile, and that's how I found your program.
Oh, yes. And were you listening to the first part of that interview here?
Yeah, it started from the beginning. Yeah, it was great. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, you listened to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm always, like I said, I'm always surprised anytime someone listens. So thank you for listening to that. And I also saw that you sent me a message, and I believe it was a question for Eric. And I dropped the ball. I'm sorry about that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he talked a little bit later, but he didn't talk about his personal experience with, if you want to talk about that, we can go into that. Sure.
Yeah, tell me, what do you want me to ask him exactly? And what did you mean?
Yeah, so he mentioned the one mind of the universe. And then he also mentioned, I have some notes about his talk there.
Oh, wow.
So, and then he went into some spirituality kind of stuff with the, he went into a few things, but he didn't talk about his personal experience with that oneness experience. He talked about it maybe twice. He mentioned, let's see, a bunch of stuff. We are singularities in consciousness and in power. That's another quote by Eric.
Oh, understood. And by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't do this, but I missed your intro here. I did want to say we are speaking to Mr. Prince Paul Mamakos, and you've spent over 20 years doing this. And of course, you had your first sleep paralysis experience back in '96. And I also saw you mentioned Art Bell.
Yeah, Art was great with the Coast to Coast AM. He'd have after midnight, he'd had a show that I listened to for a long time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know you were a fan of radio at all.
Yeah, I've listened to a few people over for many years. First one was Art Bell, and a lot to say about Art. He's the first person that I heard about after my first sleep paralysis that opened me up to this whole world of what Eric was talking about and what I went into experiencing.
So obviously you know about Dr. Albert Taylor then.
Yeah, I read one of his books, Soul Traveler. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, great book.
Yeah.
You should have told me about that. I would have brought him on here with you.
Oh, let's do it next time.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
The thing is,
great.
anytime there's someone I know that a guest likes personally, and if I've ever interviewed that person, what I like to do is bring both of them together.
Yeah, there's another guy, Dr. Eben Alexander, who would be a great person to talk with also.
Oh, yeah.
He's had some similar experiences. So
amazing stuff. And of course, you are the author of your own book, The Golden One.
Yeah, The Golden One, an out-of-body book. There are a couple Golden One books, but yeah, that's what I felt was the right name for it.
Interesting. And why'd you choose that?
Well, a lot of icons, like religious things, have like a aura around the head, and it's sometimes a gold color. And then also in the physical world, gold is something of value. So the whole universe, in a sense, is permeated by this one being, or the one. I can go more into that, but it's permeated by this thing, and gold is a similar kind of flavor to that. So it seemed like the right name.
Understood. And I have that photograph up of your book in the chat room for people can get familiar with it. And of course, you can find it on your website, outofbodyjournal.com, correct? Or am I wrong?
No, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Very nice, very nice. And how long have you, well, I shouldn't say how long have you done that, but I'm very interested to know exactly why did you even get interested in this?
Right. Okay. So when I was a young kid, going to elementary school, I was interested in science a little bit, and in high school, I got more into the NASA and all that kind of stuff and I found on a vacation one time up north, I found like a rock that I thought was maybe a meteorite, and I kept it in my room, and it just a touchstone for an interest. And so when I got into college in my sophomore year of college, I'm 42 years old now, but in my sophomore year of college, I had this sleep paralysis experience. And the previous semester I'd been running a lot, so I had a lot of energy. And then I stopped running in the semester where I had the sleep paralysis, and I was eating a lot of pizza. So I think that, combined with my mental sharpness from studying all the time, it created the environment for me my mind was awake, and I was able to relax, and I had a lot of energy. So those things combined, I think, contributed to that. Yeah.
So pizza helped.
Yeah, pizza it knocked out the body. It wasn't good, health wise, but it was good to not permanently injure the body, but to momentarily do it.
Understood. And I was asked in the chat room by Vic something: is Prince his first name or a title?
I changed my name in 2017 when I wrote the book. So Prince Paul is my first name.
Right. And you legally changed it, right? Or that's oh, okay.
Yeah, yes. I changed it at the courthouse, and then I went to the Social Security. Once I got the paperwork back from the courthouse, I went to the Social Security office, and I showed them my stuff, and they changed it for me.
Interesting.
It was great.
And I couldn't put Prince Paul all together, by the way, in the graphic there.
It's great the way you did it, not enough space, right?
Yeah, it looks cool. I like it. And you look like a younger man. You don't look that old.
Well, I think that's the yoga, and then I studied a lot of detoxification and natural healing. So I think that's what it was. That's why.
Vic something in the chat room is asking, why Prince?
Okay, well, yeah. So on Earth, we have the system of royalty, and people talk about bloodlines and things like that. But on the larger universal sense, the masculine would be the non-physical, or the one, or the unmanifest. And the feminine, we say Mother Earth. So in between the mother and the father, you have to have something. So that's like the prince and the princess. So my thought was, when someone realizes the oneness, or the connectivity, or the they're like everybody is your brother or sister or something like that, that the source is in everybody, then once you get that understanding, which I had labeled the third stage of out-of-body experiences, then you're somewhat of a prince or a princess.
I see. Interesting. And of course, Paul, I do want to ask you, when you were younger, were your parents religious at all?
No, we we were Greek Orthodox, and I went to a Catholic high school. But and I have a brother and sister. But we celebrated the family and the community of going to church on Saturday and Sunday. But we didn't go every Saturday, Sunday. But they weren't in the religious sense of at that time they didn't openly pray. I know my father was fearful when he died. And my mom is she's more open these days since I've talked over the years, and I think she may have had an out-of-body experience one time when she had an accident. But
yeah, there's a lot of religious folks out there who are very much against meditation, astral projection, of course, anything of that nature. They're very much resistant on.
Yeah, well, prayer is a form of meditation. It is a meditation, you know.
I agree with you on that one.
You know, saying the rosary or chanting, you know.
It's no different than what we were just talking about with my previous guest.
Right.
Just a matter of perspective, I would say.
Yeah, what you want to do, you know.
Intent, no doubt. And so, did you ever, I guess you could say, turn your back away from religion?
In high school, I was known as I think the atheist or the agnostic.
I see.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Quite a turn of events there.
I thought so. I was wondering where it was.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I was focused on the question, you know, whether there was life after death. Or,
how old, by the way? Sorry to cut you off.
Since when? Since
when you were
since I was.
Yeah, when you were contemplating these questions.
I think they got more. I got more interested in finding an answer or looking into it when I got into high school, because I was forced to take religious classes, you know, every semester, you know, or whatever that's called, trimester.
Yeah. It would have been sixth grade for me when I started.
Oh, you too.
Yeah, I was thinking about life after death. I was thinking about different religions out there, whether who was right, who was wrong. I was very open-minded to all that at a very early age.
Awesome. And where did that go? I heard you say you're an atheist now still, or?
Well, I'm an agnostic atheist, which means, you know, I do keep Jesus in reserve.
Yeah.
You never know. Well, I keep all the gods in reserve. You never know which one's right.
Great. Yeah.
Well, maybe they're all right. I was just going to say, maybe they're all right. Maybe they all have pieces of the puzzle somehow.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
That's a pretty good way of seeing it. Some people, though, get very angry if you don't follow their same religion or political ideology. Especially today in society, so many people fighting amongst each other over the most mundane things in the world. And especially with the more recent elections that we had, lots of conflict there, even with people that we're very close to in our families. It's caused a bit of a split between some of them. I'm not sure if you've experienced that, Paul, but I'm sure you know someone who has.
Yeah, I've seen family dynamics even amongst cousins or aunts, and you know, when people die, it becomes more prevalent with when there's a will involved and, you know, finances.
Oh yes. So let's talk about your book here a little bit and the subject of astral flight, in other words. And yeah, in your book, do you teach people how to do this, or is this more of a personal journal, Paul?
The book, the out of body, the golden one and out of body book is it's like a teaching manual for anyone from the basic to the more advanced and to the ultimate. You know, it'll take someone in 3 stages. There are 3 stages that nobody talks about, but everybody goes through, and if they continue with the out of body experience, they'll end up at the 3rd stage.
Interesting. And I wanted you to perhaps I guess you could say teach our listeners, or at least try to help some of them achieve astral projection. Can you do that for us here?
Sure, that's what I'm all about.
Amazing.
Yeah, you were talking about the many different perspectives and the like each religion or each belief system or practice has some kind of nugget or gem in it, and one of the words for that is ecumenical, which like all religions kind of thing and all beliefs, even the agnostic and the atheist. So
Yeah, you could learn something from everyone, really.
right. In the higher levels of each one of those belief systems is either an increase in the mental ability or increase the refinement in the astral or the emotional or the mental or the service, and they all lead somewhere. So yeah,
Definitely. So let's go over some of these things. What would be the easiest way to achieve astral projection?
Okay, so on the internet, there's things called binaural beats, and it's like if you were sitting between two drummers and they played a slightly different type of drum with a different pitch or sound. If you were sitting between those two drummers, you would get a different, like a difference in the hertz or the frequency of the two sounds. And it would, if you had that isolated to each ear, you'd get a third frequency inside your brain. So I would say flood your brain with binaural beats, but you don't want to go from alpha to beta to theta to delta. You don't want to mix them up. Find like if you want to have an out-of-body experience, focus on either the alpha or the theta, because those are the alpha will make you relaxed, help you get relaxed, and theta will help you go into the dream state, and delta would be deeper sleep. But you want to pick one of those and work with it and try and relax. You would lay down on your bed, turn off your phone, and then just stay awake while listening to that music and see how long you can stay awake without falling asleep, because those things will help you relax. And a lot of times when we relax, we go to sleep. So you want to work on that for about an hour almost every day. So.
Amazing. And Asuka in the chat room, they want to astral project his or her spirit to Japan. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I hope we answered their question there. I'm not sure if they're trolling or not, or if they really want to do that, but it's possible, right?
Yeah, the first stage of out-of-body experiences is where you get out of your body. And a lot of people, they want to go and do a lot of things, but once they get out of their body, it's so exciting and amazing. It's so much of a surprise that it happened and it's real, that you end up back in your body, because your excitement is normally associated with moving your body. So one of the tricks, one of the things about astral projecting is you have to learn to do it without going back into your body.
Yes, indeed. And is astral projecting dangerous?
No, I don't think so. No, I've had hundreds of experiences in over 20 years, and you'll always end up back in your body.
Yeah, some people fear that for whatever reason. I don't know why, but everyone naturally can do this. Some people do it by accident. Sometimes people can be under the influence of drugs and it happens to them.
Yeah, if you're drinking, sometimes you can create a pathway for other beings to enter your body, and if you take drugs, you're going to have when you do different substances, you have a paired journey. Your journey isn't just your own. You've introduced another entity or some kind of other thing has been allowed to come into your body. So you're going to be in that experience for as long as it happens. If you do mushrooms, you're going to be in it for many hours, and you can't just stop the experience when you're done. It's going to take you there, and so that's what that's about.
Yes, he's asking if, or she, I'm not sure if it's a guy or girl, we haven't established that yet in the chat room, but they're asking if I get my astral body stuck in a Japanese panty vending machine, will I die? That's trolling.
You might
die. That's a great question, though. It's a great question. The Japanese, they have a very interesting culture, don't they?
They do.
You could definitely find anything in a vending machine there.
Yeah, yeah. Japanese are very intelligent people.
They are.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very smart people. And again, going back to Discord, it makes me wonder if you yourself are a gamer of sorts.
I used to play arcade games when I was a young kid, and some Dungeons and Dragons and Civilization, but not not in the last maybe 20 years or
Because I went on
50,
your
no.
website and there was like this video game image there I saw.
Oh yeah, well I found Paint, Paint Shop Pro.
Oh, okay.
It's a program on the PC, and I was trying to make a logo or figure out something that I liked, and they have like a 3D studio where you can pick characters and you can move them
I
out,
see.
or move them around easily. So
I thought
I
you
just
were
made
like a gamer of sorts. I was like, oh, Paul. I had no idea.
Yeah. That was like the beginning of setting this stuff up, and I liked it, so I still have it.
That's cool. Very nice. So astral projecting is not dangerous. You're not going to die at any time. Don't be afraid now. And of course, going back to how we can even achieve this, it all really depends on not falling asleep, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's got to be
There are
difficult.
different yes, different musicians have created tracks with binaural beats, and they typically last about 45 minutes. And also the sleep state, I think it's about an hour and a half where you go through the whole cycle of sleep. So if you do 45 minutes and you're able to stay awake while listening to one of those things, then that'll help you.
It's a long time. Those those apps that help you go to sleep, those knock you out quick.
Yeah, you don't want to listen to a theta app that'll put you to sleep. You want to go more to delta. You want to go more toward the theta. The dreaming or the creative alpha and theta.
Yes, and so Paul, what does this mean to you after all these years? Why would anybody want to do this sort of thing?
All right. Well, for me, I had my childhood was kind of controlling by my parents and things like that. So naturally, I wanted to escape. So my going out of body was probably a continuation of that rebellion in my teens, and then just happening upon sleep paralysis. And then I found information on the Art Bell radio program where some people were talking about sleep paralysis and out of body experiences. So it just naturally led that way.
I see. Very cool. And have you had any other experiences, let's say with the paranormal or strange lights in the sky, anything of that nature?
Once you activate the body, you become sensitive to a lot of different energies. And I have when I was in Southeast Asia one time on a boat, and I saw this was in junior high school. I saw like a big fireball go across the sky. So that was maybe some kind of subliminal influence there. And I have out of body, I've met other beings, what we would call aliens, or just non-physical beings, and like green, like vibrant green, like the color of grass. I've met, and they showed me around and stuff like that. And I've written about that in my book also.
That's interesting. So you've had these experiences with these entities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe we're all, even after we die, we become one of those beings. And a lot of people talk about other lives, or like they were so-and-so, they had an experience. Oh, I was the Queen of England in whatever year, or I was so-and-so. If you look at that in a larger sense, if there's only one being, then every person in existence now and that has ever been has been you. If you're looking at somebody on the street or on the TV and they're doing something that you wish you were doing, just tell yourself, well, that is you right there now doing it. That's you in that other body.
And a lot of individuals who have achieved the astral realm, they've achieved astral travel to the astral plane, rather, and sometimes they run into maybe a friend or someone. Are those really your friends though, or is that just maybe a projection in your mind of your friend?
Right. That's a good question. I'm not sure of the answer, but I know when I've been out of body, I've had memories that I don't know when I'm awake. So I've had memories that I don't normally have access to of experiences and things. So
Yeah, it's interesting. It
yeah.
is interesting if we run into a friend or so or someone, if maybe that's really them in the astral plane.
Yeah, on the astral plane, I've met somebody once, and I knew their name, and I said, "Hey," we hugged and everything, but I don't know who that was with my personality here, awake.
Yeah, there's been weird experiences about individuals who had this like a shared dream.
Yeah, for sure.
Creepy.
Oh.
That
You mean
is
two
creepy.
different people had the same experience in the dream, and they talked to
Absolutely.
each other?
And they communicated.
Yeah,
Holy hell.
that's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
pretty cool, yeah. Have you never had that happen to you though?
I have. I had an out of body experience one time, and I met someone who I hadn't. I went to a workshop one time, and then I hadn't talked to them or seen them in over a year, and I had a out of body experience with them, and then I contacted them, and it was real. We both had it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you've had a lot of these experiences then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very nice. And I did want to also ask you just a little bit about your relationship with your parents and other relatives. Is everything good with them?
Yeah. Everything's good. Let me see. I'm about 600 miles away from them, so there's some space. But in my first 2 years about out of body experiences, I got so excited and I want to talk with everybody. So I called them every week, for like 2 years. And
were they receptive of that?
they put up with it, but they didn't really go into it. They didn't encourage me to talk more about it.
Some people will think that that's like something you do for escapism.
Right. Well, okay. So on the larger scale, we talked about this already. The benefit of this is that it helps you become aware of the source. A lot of people can achieve that on a social level, but that's another way to do it.
No doubt. And of course, you also found yourself at the Monroe Institute, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? Tell me about that.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to have an out-of-body experience, but I also wanted to, after my first sleep paralysis, and I'd heard about out-of-body experiences, I wanted to have an out-of-body experience, but I wanted to do it before I went there. I didn't want it to be influenced by it, or I didn't want it to create my experience. I was a scientific person, so toward the end of the year of 2016, I had 2 out-of-body experiences, and I'd also scheduled a workshop at the Monroe Institute. And I traveled from college during the winter break, and I took a program. Yeah.
And was that a very good experience for you?
Yeah, it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it was that impactful then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild. And I'm curious, by the way, when you astral project, there's certain techniques some individuals like more than others. Some people like to be laying down. Some people like to be sitting in a chair. What do you like to do?
Yeah, well, I tried all the positions where you lay down. I didn't do hardly any sitting things. I did later on in Vipassana meditation in 2014, some sitting. But in my training, I would lay on my stomach, I lay on my side. I tried all different types of positions, and I moved my feet north or south, east, west. I tried all these different positions. What I liked the most was laying on my back.
That
my
was
head
easy.
facing north.
Was that easier?
Yeah. Because if I laid on my side with my hand or with my arm under my body, on my side or on my front, then a limb might fall asleep or something, and I might wake up and not be able to move because it's asleep.
Yes. And going back to when I mentioned the whole entities in the astral plane, Going back
Yeah.
going back to that, since I was talking to the first guest about demons and all that sort of stuff, do you consider any of these things to be of that nature, dark in that essence?
There are dark beings out there, but the type of person you are is where you end up. So if you're like vibrating in a certain way, then you're going to meet those type of people. And if you're focusing in another way, that you'll end up with those type of people.
Basically, you're going to project that.
Yeah,
Or
it's
manifest
like,
that for you, rather.
Yes, yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, that's probably not a good experience for someone who is like a Luciferian, who is really dark and deep into it.
Right.
Well, my first guess is pretty dark as well, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's an interesting guy, right?
Yeah, it fits into the. There's a book by Carla Ruckert, The Law of One, and in that book she mentions that there's a positive path and there's a negative path, and to be successful on the negative path, you have to be more than 90% negative, or it could have been 95, but you have to be really negative, But to be successful on the positive path, you only need to be like 51%.
Yeah.
Service to others is the positive path, and the negative path is service to self, like really egoistic and stuff. But on the negative path, people don't help each other. They don't raise each other up. They knock each other down. So it's harder to be successful on the negative path. But eventually, Carlo was saying that once you get to a certain point of progress of your sharpness of mind and your focus of the astral, you notice this. You have to go to the positive path. The negative always has to flip to the positive path, which I think Eric has, because he's noticed a oneness. And he puts out a really good positiveness to his message. So he says dark path, but I don't think he is really like the evil path. He's just more the darkness is the void. It's like the cauldron of creativity of not the kinetic but the potential. He's got it's the dark. The darkness is the potential of creativity.
Yes. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. He's a great individual, great mind on him. He was sort of selling himself short, though, when he was thinking he wasn't as intelligent as he really is. I think he's a pretty sharp guy.
Yeah, very smart guy.
A very wise guy. Great guest. And, of course, this goes back to some of the more basic questions, because there's other individuals out there who can't even dream, if you can even imagine that.
Well, they're blessed, man. They're so blessed.
I know, right?
They're living their life, and they don't have to dream about it. They just go out and do it. It's great.
Yeah, but that's kind of odd. I dream. Well, we dream all the time, but some people just can't remember them, or they don't really have lucid dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. There are supplements you can take, which I haven't really ever done, but I recently got a book on. It's called Advanced Lucid Dreaming. There was a guy on the Discord channel I think his name is Decon. He's experienced like a oneness experience, and he mentioned this book by Thomas Juszczyk. And I'm going through it slowly, just skipping around, but it's if people can't sleep well or can't dream and they'd like to, there are options out there.
Oh, yeah. I try to encourage everyone to at least try to. Everyone at one time used to dream, and they had very lucid dreams. And sometimes I notice people that use narcotics at times, they're the ones who have trouble dreaming.
Yeah, where you wake up and you think you're awake and you're really still dreaming. I've done that a few times also. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, or that too.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
What do you mean by triple dreaming? Yeah.
Well, actually, I meant some folks out there, when they do drugs, let's use pot for an example here, even though it's not really a drug per se, but I noticed that certain individuals, lots of friends of mine who they stop for like a week or a couple days, and their dreams become extremely lucid, almost to the point where it's like almost a nightmare for them.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I had a out-of-body experience one time, or it could have been a dream, but it was very lucid. And a friend of mine who does a lot of who does a lot of pot. We're not close to each other, but at the time I was spent a few days with some friends, and the dream wasn't while I was with them, but I met like his master or whatever on the etheric plane or the astral plane, and it was like spikes of energy all around the body. That's what what I believe the marijuana does to the etheric and the astral energy. It creates spikes.
Hey, you're probably right.
Yeah, if you have friends who are doing that kind of thing, then they may like cactus and other things that are spiky. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who I always use as an example, and I feel bad for doing so. Excuse me. My goodness, I was coughing there. I hope you didn't hear me.
No, but you make sure you're okay.
I'm good. I was just going to say, there's a buddy of mine who I always use as an example, and I feel bad for doing so, but he's someone who went really deep into psychedelics, and I noticed for a while he was really into mushrooms, and it went to, I think he was also doing something else. I'm starting to forget what he was doing. There was another drug, another powerful hallucinogen that he was doing.
Maybe DMT or ayahuasca?
Maybe DMT, perhaps. Yeah. I think that's what he was doing. I know that since, I live close to the Mexican border out here, about 12 miles away, he knew a shaman out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they were extracting it. I forgot exactly how. I wish I could give you those details because they are fascinating. But anyways.
Not peyote, possibly?
I don't know if it was peyote. I'm thinking it might have been DMT.
Okay.
Dimethyltryptamine. And I remember one time he was showing it to me and he was asking me if I was interested. And I thought, hell no, that's going too far in. I don't want to open myself up to that just yet.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. But I'm using him as an example because he's someone who afterwards, after the whole drug thing, after that sort of phase, he got really into like religion, and he bounced around to a couple other religions. And I just kept thinking, I wonder what's going on with him in his psyche. Why in his mind does he feel the need to do all these things, going into these certain church groups and doing the psychedelics and sort of just going off the deep end there? He turned into a very different individual after this experience.
Yeah, well, there's a book called Power versus Force by David Hawkins. And he talks about the difference, between like a prana, or he doesn't use the word prana or chi, but that's kind of the force. And the power is this, like the source or the spirit or God, or there are different words for that.
Yes, I just found it interesting that he bounced around different religions so much.
Yeah, so
was he a lost soul?
Carlos Castaneda writes about the effects of different things like marijuana, peyote, and things like that. Just to put that out there. Lost soul. We're all personalities, and what I've written in the book is we at one extreme is a personality at the outer circle, at the tangential point, and in the center of the circle is the source or the non-physical, and the range of being of all beings is from between the oneness at the center and the one beyond the oneness is the one, and on the extreme is the personality. So between those two extremes is the soul, and we can have all different types of experiences. And so he went outside like the social norm, or maybe it is the group he's in is like social, but now he's kind of searching for a connection, possibly.
Yeah, he definitely went off. No one really knows what's going on with him. He definitely went off there in his own, I guess you could say, spiritual journey of sorts.
Right. Yeah. Where these things will lead is to know that the source is within. Each one of us is the source, and the same source is in all the people.
Yeah, the answers always come from within.
Yeah.
That's why I kept thinking, why is he such a lost soul when all he really needs to do is block everything out and look within?
Right. Right.
That's where the
Yeah.
truth is. You don't need any of these groups. You don't need to join any sort of religion or any of that sort. All the answers are within. And that's one thing I've realized doing all this research into occult groups and different secret societies, all that sort of occult knowledge. All those answers, they all come from within. And everyone has that same ability to do so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trip. But some people just get so lost in the journey.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and it's something to do. We all like the fun, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fun.
Yes, I don't blame him. I just hope he's well and happy with his life, because sometimes when I see individuals like that who bounce around from different groups, it really makes me feel like they are searching for a sense of belonging. That's the original reason lots of these individuals get involved with these groups in the first place.
Yeah. Another thought is that these different things that we take, they bring us back to the source. Even if it's only briefly. So it's kind of jumping ahead. And what I like to promote is that to make your life a great life, or here in the physical world, so that you're more and more happy, and then you naturally go into those peak experiences, like naturally, without taking anything. And when you get back from that experience, you're cushioned by your happy life here. And for a man to do that, he really needs to have a job and have a skill so that he can, have a foundation on which to, have a family. A woman wants someone normally who can, has money, who's not scraping by. So if you're in high school, or if you're thinking about what kind of job you're going to do, look for something, have your passions, but look for things that will pay you money,
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. There are a couple of younger listeners out there that, I didn't even know they existed, really. I thought a lot of older people listen to this, and they do, but we do have a younger listener base out there as well. Got quite surprised by that. And I definitely don't want to push any sort of drug, legal or not, to them.
Right. I recently came across a guy named John Taylor Gatto, and he was a teacher in New York for many, many years. And people should check out his videos, because if you're thinking that education is something forced on you and it's not being done correctly, you should look that up. Even if you've already graduated from school, you should check out John Taylor Gatto.
Amazing. And I also wanted to ask you if you believe in God.
Yeah, I think, yes, I've experienced certain things that, yes. Mm-hmm.
You 100% believe in God then?
Yeah,
No doubt.
I believe that being, which we all are part of, or we all are, is forever and never dies, and it has always been.
Understood. I've always leaned towards something like panspermia that helps seed this planet, but you don't exactly agree with that notion, correct?
Well, I think the physical world will always exist, some aspect of it, and I think the non-physical world always exists, and those two worlds are parts of the same being.
Understood. And of course, this goes back to an interesting conversation that I once had with an individual who worked at one of these how do I say this, at a hospice?
Yeah, hospice. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say I was going to use it in a different sense, but yeah, a hospice. And he worked there for quite some time. And one day I actually asked him out of the blue if he had any sort of talks with any of these patients there about NDEs.
Yeah,
And
that's very exciting. Mm-hmm.
it was very crazy. He actually told me one of the girls or older women that he was taking care of there at this place, or at this home rather. It was, I think it was some sort of I'm not exactly sure how this thing operated, but I recall he was telling me this story about some woman who her heart stopped beating for a couple minutes. She had this crazy story.
What happened?
Well, she thought I shouldn't say she thought, because it was a very real thing to her, but she went through the whole classic down the tunnel, saw the light sort of thing.
Yeah, Daniel Brinkley talks a lot about that stuff too. I read about him in the beginning, like 20-something years ago.
Oh yeah, he talks a lot about that.
Yeah,
he's taken a lot of heat too, by the way.
I don't know. I haven't seen what's been happening with him for recently. You know?
In terms of his, I think, military background or so.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of folks out there throwing dirt over some of the claims he's made about that. Some people don't think he's a genuine. They say he's a stolen valor.
Well, it's smart for people to be skeptical, but we're all going to die someday, and there are people who are saying that there are experiences you can have, and if you're going to go your whole life without checking it out, that would be, and then maybe end up after you die you're still alive, then that would be maybe something you missed out on.
Definitely, and of course another thing I did want to mention with you, and I wanted you to go over that with all of us here, were the focus levels.
Sure.
Made famous by Monroe.
Yeah, Robert Monroe was the founder of the Monroe Institute. In the 50s, he was a broadcaster, and he ended up buying some land in south of Charlottesville in Virginia. And he worked with sleep, like learning in sleep, and he found these frequencies, binaural beats. I don't know if he invented it or he found them from somebody else, but he worked with it, and they still have an institute, they're still working with it to this day, after maybe 60, 70 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, these focus levels, though, he developed them, and I think they're quite accurate.
Yeah, the basic, if you do yoga or if you do some type of activity where the goal is to be relaxed, when you're doing the deep relaxation in yoga, they do a savasana, and they guide you through a deep relaxation muscle tensing process. And that's basically to go into the focus 10 is a deep relaxation like you would experience in a yoga class.
Yeah, focus 1 is everyday waking consciousness, if I recall correctly, right?
Right. It's like you're walking around, you're playing sports, is focus 1. Yeah. And
when you get to about, let's say, focus 15, what goes on there? 15 is, I think, a transition point. It may be the void, what the previous guest was talking about as the darkness. Ah, yes.
Even focus 12 is a void, but the void is a space from which you can feel around in the darkness and see if there's anything pulling you in any direction. Or it's like a train station where you're about to go somewhere, but you haven't gone there yet. That's a trip. Yeah, focus 15. It says here, a state of no time consciousness. No time.
Yeah. Now that is creepy.
Well, once you see, when you mentioned before fear, and one of the as a physical person with not a lot of out-of-body experience, naturally people would be afraid. So when you get to focus 15, you're not in the afraid state anymore. It's more of an adventure and experience, and you're excited that you finally got there to the focus 15.
Understood. And I myself actually had an outer body experience, for those that don't know out there, way back when I was a very young man. Outside it happened after I took a drink of a beer. I somehow fell backwards and hit my head. And I hit my head so hard that I actually had a damn seizure. I'm not sure if I had a seizure before, but I definitely did have one on the ground. And I clearly remember seeing myself from a different perspective, Paul. It was quite creepy. I saw myself from above looking down, and I was able to pull myself together for some odd reason. I don't know what happened there. And yeah, I just took a sip of this beer and it happened.
That's awesome. It must have been life-changing. Did you see yourself shaking on the ground, or was that?
Yeah, I literally saw myself, and I stopped myself from shaking too.
Okay, you stopped yourself while still staying out of body, or you were pulled back in?
Both.
What do you mean?
It was like a weird thing. I was in my mind thinking, why am I shaking on the ground? And I told myself, stop that. And I did. And a few moments later, I'm back in there and
So
confused.
so you were out of body. You did that, and you saw yourself stop, and there were a few moments before you re-entered, and you were not shaking.
Correct.
Awesome.
It was creepy. It was a trip because I did feel calmness about the whole situation. Yeah. But once I realized what was going on, I literally said, I need to stop doing that. I need to get up. And I did.
Great.
I don't know what to call that, though, but that happened to me when I was about 15 years old, 15 or 16. I think 15.
Awesome. Well, you're not a skeptic anymore.
And, well, see, that's the thing. It's an everyday sort of battle from within myself, because I go back and, you know, I'm an agnostic atheist, really. Some days I feel that there's more to this world than meets the eye. And sometimes I feel, no, there can't be anything else. This is it. We are a product of bacteria, really. And we somehow, here we are with the power of voice all of a sudden. But then sometimes that whole notion goes away once I think of the bigger picture.
So
if that makes sense to you.
I would categorize you as a second stage out-of-body experiencer, because you left your house, you weren't in your house when this happened, and there were probably some other people around, and you were outside of your house. So you're a second stage out-of-body experiencer.
There were people around me when that happened.
There you go. So the stage you're in is you want to do it as many times as you can, and to prove to yourself that it's really real. So I don't know if you're very active about trying to have another out-of-body experience.
But I've done it already.
Oh, you have? You've had more.
Oh, huh? Yeah.
Okay.
It's just in my mind, and on this program, I want to be as rational as I can, even though the odds are stacked against me with the things I talk about. But I want to be the most rational person I can be. I've had these strange experiences throughout my life. And even now, I still try to rationalize them. I don't want to go out and say these things that, you know, I'm not trying to go out and sell myself or anything of that nature. I'm not saying that what happened was 100% accurate. Maybe there's an explanation. That's sort of the skeptic, that the skepticism that I try to keep on board. But I mean, all of that goes away the next day, to be honest with you. It really depends on my mood, like I said.
Well, do you journal? Have you ever written these down?
I haven't. I'm guilty of not. I should, though.
Okay. Oh, well, objectivity is an important part of the out-of-body experience, because you don't want to start creating things when you're out of body, and you want to be true to yourself. And so what you're doing is you're refining what your understanding is, and you don't want to influence other people also. So you're being truthful and on the positive path. You're being a good person.
Yeah, I want to be as transparent as legit as possible. Right. I don't want to sell any snake oil to anyone here.
Right. So did you say there was like a peaceful experience, or some kind of something underlying your first experience that you felt?
It was very calming, though.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Maybe that's influencing how you're acting also with your approach.
I'm not afraid to die. In other words, either.
Yeah. Me neither.
I have no fear of death. That, I know it sounds kind of wild to say, but I don't.
Right.
I feel like everything will work out just fine, just the way the universe wants it to.
Yeah, okay. So I believe there are beings that are more good, and there are beings that are more bad or evil. And so I don't believe all beings are created good. And I don't know if anyone is really created, but acting more good for an extended period of time, you know?
That makes sense. And right back to these focus levels, I want to get back to this. Very interesting. Once you get past the whole focus 23, 24, 25, it gets pretty deep, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets toward the gathering or the oneness. So I would say stage 2 is up to all the religious belief systems in the 20s. Mm-hmm.
Pretty wild stuff. And of course, if anyone is interested in what we're talking about, you can look up these the focus chart, I guess you could say, these focus levels over at the Monroe Institute website. Quick Google search and you'll find it, folks.
Yeah, I think Yeah, if you haven't posted it, I can post it later in Discord or something, where they can find it. I think in the UK, look up focus levels, Google search focus levels and UK. I think it's in the UK, United Kingdom.
Now, Focus 27, the edge of human thought capacity, the site of a way station for rest and recovery from the trauma of physical death. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think it's also referred to as the park.
The park, exactly, the park. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've gotten past the different belief systems will limit you to a certain progress toward the, say, if you're looking at a bright light or the sun, you can only look so close. If you're made of a certain material, you can't look directly at the sun. But the more higher your vibration is, the more you can look closer and get toward the source. So that's what these past belief systems, past the religious, unchanging religious beliefs, past all the mental stuff is the beyond. And that's kind of where the park is the transition to.
Really cool. And of course, your website is outofbodyjournal.com for those who were wondering. And I got a private message earlier asking about you. And yeah, outofbodyjournal.com, you could find your work there, Paul.
Right.
No doubt. And going back to the focus levels really quickly here, there's Focus 49. I'm not quite sure I know about that one.
Well, when I was taking some of the programs, like Starlines and some of the other higher level, if there is any higher level, like Focus 10 is all you need to go to transition anywhere you want to go to naturally. But beyond like the Earth, beyond the human belief systems and the thoughts, and there are other, there's other galaxies, so there's going to be other numbers, and they don't necessarily mean anything good. It means maybe that in the beginning you didn't reach the source from some of the easier stuff, so they had to create other stuff to see if you can get to the source. You know what I'm saying?
That's trippy. And what about the Akashic records?
Yeah, okay. People have described it as all the wisdom or all the experiences that have ever happened. I've been a few times into a state where I've known everything in the universe. I've had access to all everything that's ever happened, but I didn't do it intentionally. I just kind of ended up there, maybe some kind of alignment. But I used to meditate a lot and sit for like an hour every evening, and that kind of thing can develop your connection with all that is, and things can happen. You know?
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I had no idea. I didn't know you were that deep in the game.
Yeah. Anyone talking about oneness has experienced a few things.
Pretty amazing. And the people at home, they can do this too, but they definitely have to keep going at it. It's something that will take some time. Is that correct?
Yeah, even if you go to church, if you go to church every Sunday, that's good. You're maintaining a focus. And the energy that happens when you're in church or praying it's the same thing, one of the things I promote is the Vipassana meditation, which is like a Buddhist sitting thing and it's like I would recommend a 10-day Vipassana retreat, because that's like having a out-of-body experience while you're in your body. You're not outside. You're not trying to take out your body through sleep and, hypnotic things. You're actually in your body, breathing, and you're alert the whole time, and things can happen.
What's your perspective on remote viewing?
Sure. There's a great remote viewer named Joe McMonigal, and you can check him out on YouTube also. And there's some other people. It's not an out-of-body experience, but it is also redirecting your senses to another location and picking up information. You have to clear your mind though, and you have to have like a set of protocols, so you're not influencing the information that you pick up. Because if you imagine the Earth has all these thoughts and events happening, and if you just open yourself, all these different things can come in. So you want to be able to maintain a center. You want to center yourself and then focus on an area or a number or some kind of cue that will direct your awareness to a location, and you'll be able to tap into that information.
It's pretty crazy how our government and the Russian government, how deep they were into remote viewing as well.
Yeah, people write about that in some of the, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pretty wild stuff.
I forgot the name. I'm not sure. Do you remember the name of that program? Stargate or something like that?
Yes, Project Stargate.
Stargate. Okay.
Oh, yeah. And everyone can read up on Project Stargate as well. If you look it up online, all the documents are out there nowadays. And it is interesting that these documents have been declassified as well. It really makes you wonder why, especially with some of the things that I talk about here on the program in terms of extraterrestrials. That seems to be a hot topic now in the media as well. Any thoughts and opinions on that, Paul?
Yeah, it's said that even in the time of Atlantis, there was war and their civilization went down the tubes. So beyond this technological and energetic and force is an underlying essence. And that essence is the similarity of what's in all the religions and all the people and all the aliens. They all have this one energy in them. And when a civilization becomes aware of that source, then we stop having war.
There's certain individuals out there in certain talk circuits that make the airwaves every now and then that believe these aliens are quote unquote demonic. Do you feel that to be true, Paul?
I haven't met any alien demons. I've met beings out of body that are more evil, but I haven't. I believe there may be beings in the earth, like Emery Smith talks about different things, and Corey Good also talks about things. But I'm not sure. I haven't really met any of those beings in person.
I haven't either. I haven't met any sort of ET per se. But there's lots of stories of people being abducted and having even sexual experiences as well.
Yeah,
That's kind of weird.
I don't know about the abductions. I think Corey Good talks about that. But the sexual stuff, that's one of the phases that you go through as an out-of-body experiencer.
Yeah, it seems like you definitely are able to have that sort of experience as well in the astral plane. A very sexual experience.
Right. It's a development of the personality.
Oh, yes. And
one of the things about that is, you can have sex with people who aren't 100% human. And then it becomes an issue if you ever are shown children. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, you might have to take care of some more kids out there.
That's right.
That you don't even know of.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, and do you have kids, Paul?
Not physically.
That's good. That's good. Maybe you don't want kids.
I'm open to it. I'd like to have a family, but I am where I am, and things may change. Who knows?
You're not out there dating, Paul.
Well, I've had a on and off relationship, but I'm looking for a spiritual person, ideally, but more generally like a Pisces woman. I've gone through some of the astrology stuff, and like a year of the rat, Chinese year of the rat, or a monkey with maybe a Pisces or a Scorpio woman is supposed to be ideal for. I'm a Cancer sign. Year of the dragon.
My goodness, Paul, you need to go to Arizona.
Yeah, well, I spent like 8 months there, and I met a few women.
I'm telling you, see exactly. Paul knows. He knows the deal. You would definitely meet someone of your likeness out there, Paul. Someone just like you, just into these sort of topics. I think you would. Obviously, you've been there, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, some of the great restaurants out there, and also durian in Tucson, Arizona. They have some Asian markets with durian in it. It's a food that's tasty. Yeah.
Very nice. And Paul, are you open to going about the whole talk circuit thing and going to these conferences to talk about out-of-body experiences and astral projection?
Yeah, for sure. I love this stuff. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you would make a pretty good speaker doing some of your presentation work out there.
Yeah, in the beginning of my out-of-body experiences, I always wanted to share this with people, and I started doing that more so in 2017 when I started writing and with the YouTube channels and through that means. But I'm open to coaching, but also traveling. I used to travel a lot, and I have the ability to travel and some of the funds to do that, but I'd love to do that, yeah.
Very nice. And another thing I did want to ask you was some people that have gone to the astral plane, they have reported seeing loved ones from the past, former loved ones, people that are gone. They meet them in the astral plane. Have you had any of those sort of experiences yourself, Paul?
I've met beings that I don't personally know, but for instance, I met Robert Monroe. I never met him in the physical world, but I met him out of body, and he shook my hand. He said,
Wow.
"Congratulations!" One of my experiences, I bought my dad a ticket to a week at the Monroe Institute a few years before he ended up dying, and he met his deceased brother while he was walking outside. He saw him in the mist, and he was smiling at him. So at that point, he kind of changed his opinion of this stuff because he really didn't want to go to the workshop. But I bought it and said, "Hey, I bought it. If you don't go, I'm just going to donate it to the Institute," So
Yeah.
he went.
So
He went.
was Dad open-minded to?
No, not at
Okay.
all. He was a skeptic, but I guess he believed enough in me to go and
It's nice
at
of
least
him.
satisfy me.
That's a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Mhm.
Usually there's a parent that we have. One of them is more open-minded than the other. What was your mom open-minded?
I think so. Yeah. It turns out later on, after being a child, later on, I met some of my uncles and stuff, and they'd had out of body experiences, so they just never told me while I was growing up. So
Yeah.
her side of the family must have had that in it.
Must have had a lot of things going on with them. And
Right.
it seems to be the case with a lot of people out there that have, I guess you could say, experienced the paranormal. They've had some sort of sighting or anything of that nature, or even seen strange lights in the sky. That sort of thing seems to have happened in the past with a family member or two. Kind of weird, but that's how it goes.
Right. hmm
Very
I'm always
strange.
curious about that. People's stories. I love to hear them. Because it's always exciting to see how it happened for people.
Understood. And going back to something I was asking the first guest, I was curious what his thoughts were on karma. And I want to ask you the same question, Paul. Do you believe in karma?
I believe that it's a term that's used. He was talking about some Hindu stuff, and I'm familiar with all the Bhagavad Gita and the other stuff. Some of the things that people say, there's a guy named Sadhguru on YouTube, SADH Guru, Sadhguru, and he says there's something like a stickiness. Every interaction you have creates like in my own terms, it's an association, and it's like a connection somehow. So
Wow.
anything that happens, so you could call that karma, but if you're wanting to get beyond karma, is to go to the more and more subtle. And once one of the terms that Gabriel Cousens uses, Rabbi and Dr. Gabriel Cousens, he says you die into the nothingness. So when you're sitting and meditating or praying, you fall into that so much that kind of experience can connect you with, you just kind of regenerate, and maybe some of that gets rid of the karma.
Understood. And what about ESP?
Yeah, I think we all have these different senses, and one of the terms that's used is siddhi, S-I-D-D-H-I, siddhi, or power. And so these different powers, there are many, many different powers. Yeah.
Understood. And going back to, I guess you could say, your early childhood, if we can go back that far, do you recall that by any chance? Do you have any early recollections of your childhood?
Yeah, I remember almost like walking on the moon, like moonwalking, slow kind of jumping, and that kind of slow motion movement kind of thing. So that's what I would say is similar to that. One of the early experiences that I remember that wasn't some kind of paranormal thing was just I was in my crib and something pinched me, right? And I looked around and I couldn't find out what it was. So maybe that was like the beginning of my curiosity.
I think so. I felt there was some sort of experience you might have happened unknowingly, maybe at a much younger age. Sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes. From the things I've read, there are individuals who have written about kids and past lives. I'm not sure if you ever read anything about that, but they say that kids at a certain age, maybe, I don't know if it's 1 through 7 or 8, these kids actually, when they're dreaming, they are having these thoughts and memories from a past life. Have you ever heard of that, Paul?
As a child, I never had any of those experiences or remembered any of them. I've heard of that, and it's awesome.
That's weird, right?
Yeah, there's a how we raise our children is many different points of view. And there was a book by Vladimir Maggray called Anastasia, and in that book they allow their child to raise itself almost. And so I think we teach children not to have access to that or to acknowledge that, and we make them cookie cutter to try and be a certain way. But I think as children we have all that information there.
Very interesting. And we are coming to a close very soon here, Paul. Unfortunately, I did want to go a little bit longer, but it seems that we've been going on for quite some time here. About 3 hours. My goodness, I had no idea.
I don't know how long it's been, but it feels like we just started.
I know, right? It feels like we just really got underway here, but I do want to invite you back on, Paul. I feel like there's a lot more to talk about here, not with just the astral world, but just a lot of things in life in general, Paul.
Yeah, I'd love to. This would be great. I have some other things I'd love to talk about also, but yeah,
actually,
where it's going to go.
Well, Paul, we do have a few more minutes here. If there's anything that you did want to discuss or mention, this would be a great time.
Well, there is Discord on the Discord channel. I posted it in the chat. I don't know if people saw it, but if you go through the outofbodyjournal.com, there's a link to the chat groups, and people can always talk with other people through those areas. And there's a bunch of links in those spaces too. I put out a journal, and I was maybe saying I might write something every now and then, and it could possibly become a every month kind of thing. There's a journal of science, there's a journal of nature. So one day I had the idea of starting like an out-of-body journal too, because I wanted to join one. I looked around and no one had started one. So I just thought, well, this would be a good avenue for me to put some more of this stuff out there. I already had a YouTube channel with out-of-body stuff, and I thought, well, here's something that I could also do. So I published my first issue of the Out of Body Journal for June, and you could find that through the Discord or even on the just go through the website and go look around. You'll find it.
Very nice. And Paul, I do want to thank you for being a part of the program yet again. It's a tremendous honor to finally get a chance to speak to you. We just scratched the surface here tonight, and we definitely will do it again on the other side.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, all the listeners, and I hope you guys have a great evening or the rest of your day.
No problem. Thank you so much, and have a safe and good night out there.
Good night, Michael. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, Paul. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That was the one and only Prince Paul Mamakos. Great guy, great guest. I did like talking to that gentleman here tonight, and special thanks to EA Koetting, and of course our guest we were just speaking to, Paul. And of course, special thank you to those in the chat room. I really do appreciate you hanging out with me here tonight and listening to the mayhem unfold. And of course, I want to remind all of you out there, if you enjoy the program and want to help fund the program, which I would really want all of you to do, no doubt, there is a donation button on the right-hand side of your screen over at michaeldecon.com. If you can help donate any amount you can, whatever you got around, all that money goes directly back into keeping the lights on over here with the program. And those who have donated already, I really do appreciate that tremendously. Oh yes, and I will get the Patreon up and running, no doubt. I will be releasing multiple shows and definitely want your support there. And if you like the show and want additional content, sign up to the Patreon. believe the link is on the description below this video here. And of course, I want to thank the international listeners as well. Really appreciate you great folks out there. Stay safe, everyone. No matter where you are on this island Earth, I'm Michael Decon. I'll see you again very soon. And with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.